spring of 2015, a cybersecurity company discovers a piece of spyware targeting 3 hotels in Switzerland and Austria. All 3 of those hotels were hosting high-level negotiations on the future of Iran's nuclear program. The malware, called Dooku 2.0, was really versatile. It could do anything from tapping phone lines to operating two-way mics in hotel elevators, computers, and alarm systems. Dooku could theoretically spy on the Iranians, but also on the Americans and their negotiating partners.
There are enemies to these talks, and they will do whatever they can.
It's almost impossible to conclusively identify who created Dooku, but fingers immediately started pointing at Israel, a country with both the motive and the means. I flew to Washington to meet Adam Entis, the Wall Street Journal reporter who first broke the Dooku story. You broke some stories that the Israelis were not only spying on the US during these negotiations, but they were also feeding information to Congress. How'd you verify that?
So what happened is that we were monitoring Israeli communications very closely. The US was sharing some details with the Israelis about the ongoing negotiations, but we weren't telling them everything. But we started seeing in references to details from the negotiations that the White House knew they were not providing to the Israelis. Bottom line is that the experts that analyzed it and current and former US officials who also have taken a look believe that Dooku 2.0 is an espionage tool that's used by Israel for its biggest spying operations. Given the fact that the US spends so much money in support of Israel's military and its intelligence services, that Israel is so aggressive at spying against the United States does upset, counterintelligence officials in the United States because they feel like they should be focused on other things.
And the money the US government gives to Israel is substantial. Since the creation of the state in 1948, the Americans have handed over more than $120 billion in aid, most of it in the form of military assistance. But military aid alone doesn't explain Israel's emergence as a global cyber superpower. So how does a small country like Israel become such a big player in cyber warfare? And if the Israeli government is spying on the United States, its closest ally and its biggest financier, what does it say about the country's agenda? Ronen Bergman is an investigative journalist and a senior political and military analyst for one of Israel's largest circulation daily newspapers.
Ben, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. Welcome. Welcome to Israel.
I met him at his home outside of Tel Aviv.
What do you make of something like Dooku 2.0? That was malware that was targeting specific diplomatic discussions, and it seemed to benefit one country and its interests. Do you think the Israelis did it?
Look, I'm not dealing directly with Israeli intelligence on the USA, because otherwise this is going to be my last interview, or our next meeting will be, I would say, with some sort of bars or a glass between us.
Ronen Bergman wouldn't give me a straight answer when it came to Dooku or spying on Americans. But if the malware actually was Israeli, many people believe it came out of the military's signals intelligence branch, Unit 8200. Military service is compulsory for most Israelis, and Unit 8200 gets its pick of potential recruits.
But why is it that the Israelis are so good at cybersecurity?
Well, I think it started a long time ago. If you are the military intelligence, from very early point, they got the permission to select from the thousands and thousands of teens, and you offer them to play a very unique game, a game that they can play only in Israel, only in military intelligence. They won't be able to play any other place in the world. The game is this: you get at least 3 years of innovation summer camp, continuous innovation summer camp, to come up with a solution that would save the country. The deployment of your solution could be very quick because we need to decrypt the Iranian code because they are threatening us with nuclear weapon or the possibility of nuclear weapon. We need to hack into the computer of that jihadist because he's planning the next suicide bombing. That's a great responsibility. And you get, as young as 18 or 19 years old to deal with the most exciting stuff that anyone can deal with, espionage.
Is there ever a thought within Israeli society that all of this innovation is coming from a game played by these kids that's actually pretty lethal and has real-world implications? These innovations are coming out of wars.
This innovation saved the country. I will say it again. The innovation of these young kids saved Israel.
I wanted to meet some of the kids destined for the cyber units of Israel's armed forces. After turning 18, most Israelis are obliged to serve in the military for 2 to 3 years. Many teenagers hope to join Unit 8200, the signals intelligence branch, and the largest single military unit in the Israeli Defense Forces. But they don't actually get to choose where they're drafted. In 2013, the Ministry of Defense helped create a national program for promising high school students aiming to be future cyber warriors. There are 10 high schools offering this program across the country, and Amal Lady Davis High School is one of them. Toby Stupp has been teaching here for the past 10 years.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Is this Hacking 101?
Well, actually, we're not really teaching them hacking because we don't want to emphasize how to steal things or how to break into things.
Right.
That's not what we're in.
Some more defensive stuff.
It's more defensive.
Many of the students I spoke to were aiming to get into Unit 8200 or Talpiot, an elite program with the IDF's research and development arm. And it's not just because they want to serve their country. What they learn in the military can also set them up for a pretty baller career after their service is all done. Yair Ben Shimol and Jonathan Wallenstein are students in the cyber program.
Why'd you do this class?
Will benefit us in the army.
So something like Unit 8200. Unit 8200.
Yes. Yeah, 8200. Yeah.
Right. Is that something that people want to do?
I'm aiming more for like another program that's called Talpiot, which is it's pretty much the elite of the elite. And if you get there, you pretty much settle for your life. You just go to a working place. I said I was Talpiot. Sowing money about it.
Start making it rain.
Yeah, making it rain. Everybody wants you.
Girls, money.
Yeah, girls, money, cars, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
I don't know if hackers get all that.
With fresh recruits every year and an annual turnover of 25%, Unit 8200, the Israeli military's signals intelligence branch, is like a revolving door. Many former soldiers come out of the unit and head straight for private cybersecurity companies.
Oh, it's brand new.
I'm in Tel Aviv to meet with Nadav Zafrir. He's a former commander of Unit 8200. Today, he's the CEO of Team 8, a multi-million-dollar private cybersecurity company in Tel Aviv.
We are a nation of entrepreneurs, and so the high-tech scene here has been booming for many years already. We've also been able to create innovation, creativity, and talent creation through the military service, which used to be a burden on our economy, but lately is almost becoming part of the, the strength of our economy.
And it's no secret, you were in Unit 8200. Because it's funny, we've been talking to a lot of these kids, and they're not wanting to be like Israeli Rambo. Like, they want to be in Unit 8200. It's this thing.
Yeah, because it's almost a mixture between going to an Ivy League university and doing your internship all at once while you're serving your country. They come with all their naivety, with all their faith in what they're doing, with all their motivation, and together they create something which is truly exceptional.
They may come in with naivete and faith, but they don't all leave that way. In 2014, 43 reserve soldiers wrote an open letter to the Israeli Prime Minister, criticizing some of Unit 8200's surveillance practices. The covert SIGINT unit targets so-called enemies of the state outside the country. But Palestinians in the occupied territories are also surveilled, even if they haven't been identified as a threat. In their letter, the reservists said they refused to take part in actions against Palestinians if they were called back to active duty. Israel's defense minister denounced them as criminals. Gilad, who asked we not use his last name and not reveal his face, signed the letter and served in the top-secret Unit 8200.
It was a gradual process of learning and understanding more and more when I got to the point that I understood that I was part of something that I don't really believe in, and that Palestinians are fully vulnerable to surveillance, and practically any 18-year-old kid can decide that Palestinian is a legitimate and justified target for intelligence.
So were there any restrictions given to operators on who they could target and who they couldn't?
There's no legal procedure, no attorneys that you have to consult with. Very easy. It's a matter of pressing the button.
Part of the letter talks about the fact that you would use some of this intelligence to turn Palestinians against each other.
You can find examples in our testimonials. We speak about sexual orientation, medical problems, financial problems, family issues such as, you're having an affair or something like that. So Israeli intelligence units can use it to gently force you to cooperate and put you in a situation where your life is going to be totally destroyed, or you help the military regime.
So let's say if you're homosexual and you're involved with Hamas and you don't want that to come out.
Even if you're not involved with Hamas, even if you're just a neighbor of someone who is indirectly involved with Hamas, and that person is very interesting and we want to collect information about that person, but by chance you're just in the neighborhood, so maybe we will use you to get to him. Any weakness is something that you can use to gain cooperation and collaboration.
Gilad regrets his role in the surveillance of Palestinian civilians. But what's it like to be on the other side of that surveillance? The Israeli military is well known around the world for its cyber surveillance capabilities. Closer to home, Palestinians are all too aware of the country's power. Residents of the occupied territories may use local telecommunications companies like Paltel for their phones and internet, but the system relies on Israeli infrastructure.
Israelis didn't only occupy the land, they occupied the sky also and the air around us.
Safa Nasser al-Din is a former minister of telecommunications and IT in the Palestinian Authority, which governs the West Bank. I met her at a hotel in Jerusalem.
How do you compare Palestinian Authority cybersecurity versus Israeli government?
I don't think that we can compare it because we are new to this field. We created the government network in 2010 and we took it from Paltel. So it was a network of a Paltel network where parts of it is leased from Israel. So it was always open to Israeli measures or any security.
So does every average Palestinian just accept that every email, text message can or could be intercepted and read by Israeli intelligence?
They don't accept, but they know that it happens. We are occupied. We cannot do anything about it.
Since all communication systems in the West Bank route through Israel, it's hard for Palestinians to escape Israeli surveillance. But some people are trying to change that. I went to Ramallah to meet Hannah Kreitem and Samer Shawar. They're co-founders of a Palestinian hackerspace called Vecbox.
Really nice.
This is a bunker, practically.
Yes, kind of a bunker.
Instead of a bunker, it's a hack space.
What we did as part of a project is establishing an internet exchange point to allow exchange of information to stay local, without having to go through Israel and then through other operators.
So you think that all of the internet, essentially in the West Bank and Ramallah, is being clearly creeped on?
Yes.
And why? Why is that? Why do you think that?
We have the PA and Israel both would like to know what's going on, and Israel uses the excuse of security.
So you also said that it's not just the Israelis spying on you; it's the PA.
We have some concerns about that, and we think that they do, yes.
So it might not just be the Israelis who are monitoring Palestinians. Many believe the Palestinian Authority also uses Israeli technology to keep an eye on its population. But when it comes to cybersecurity, Israel's influence extends well beyond the territory it occupies. In 2015, its cybersecurity exports totaled around $4 billion. But what does all this cyber success mean for Israel's economy? I'm in Tel Aviv for CyberTech. It's an annual conference serving as a showcase for Israel's cybersecurity companies. Israel's overall economy is one of the strongest in the Middle East, and the cybersecurity sector is booming. And some consider the IDF's Unit 8200 to be Israel's internal R&D hub. Consider this. Its alumni are said to have founded more than 1,000 companies. I stopped at a booth where a tech company called Cyberbit was selling its battle-tested products, which are used for both security and surveillance. And its key technology was developed by veterans of Unit 8200. Adi Dar is the CEO of Cyberbit. Who are you selling to internationally?
We are selling in North America, we are selling in Asia, we are selling in Europe a lot, and of course in Israel. I can say that basically we have customers from all the different sectors, financial sector, utilities, healthcare, governments, of course.
So law enforcement as well?
Yeah, of course. Law enforcement is one significant part of what we do.
Cyberbit sells a product called PSS, which stands for PC Surveillance System. It's a suite of tools that infects computers with malware in order to gather intelligence. Why don't you tell me about the PSS system?
Basically, it's the opposite of what we do in the cybersecurity arena. Okay, in the cybersecurity, we are trying to find those hackers, to find those Trojan horses, and in the cyber intelligence part, we are using Trojans in order to collect information.
So offensive and defensive technologies. Yeah. But cybertech isn't just a platform for private companies. The conference is also a place where Israel and its prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, can show off the country's cyber strength to the rest of the world.
One of the first conferences that we held here, I said that we intend to be one of the 5 leading cyber powers in the world. I think we've achieved that, but I don't think we should be number 5 or number 4, and I don't think we are.
Beersheba is at the northern edge of Israel's Negev desert. Once a quiet town, it's now a thriving city at the heart of Israel's cyber boom. The Prime Minister wants Israel to remain one of the world's cyber superpowers. And that means bringing together the expertise of academics, the armed forces, and private business. That's something the government is investing in. Soon, a new tech park will actually share office space with units of the Israeli military. This might be where the next Duku is created. Yuval Elovici is the director of the Cybersecurity Research Center at Ben-Gurion University.
And in this lab, we have the people working on malware. So this is our malware lab.
What kind of malware are they working on?
Both on my mobile and on PC.
So why don't you show me how you can activate malware with a laser?
It's our assumption in this type of attack that there is already a malware inside the organization, and the malware has an access to a scanner inside the organization. Now, if the attacker will communicate with the malware via the internet, it may be intercepted by various defense mechanisms. So here we came up with a totally different concept, and the idea was to use a laser. So now here you can see we set up the software, and then we can just press one button. The scanner is scanning, receiving the message, and you know, even if there is not a line of sight, it's no problem, as you can see, it's very light, to put all the attack platform on a drone.
That's crazy. Israel's a small country, and yet it's connected to some of the most sophisticated malware ever.
We are really, really threatened by other countries, and we need to find innovative ways how to defend ourselves. And you know, for me, it's sometimes I'm very, very frustrated when I know that somebody is waking up in the morning and his main goal in life is just to try to damage us. We are very, very lucky that cyber help us to be secured.
Israel's success in cybersecurity comes out of the collaboration between the school system, the military, and the private sector.
The Israeli dream in all times was to be a general in the army. The dream today, the Israeli dream of every Jewish mother, is for her son not to be a pilot, not to be a physician, but to go to 8200, serve for a few years, then retire, open a startup, and then sell it for hundreds of millions of dollars.
But not all Israelis are comfortable with the role that Unit 8200 is playing in Israel's economy.
We can look at it critically and ask ourselves, what is the place that 8-200 occupies in the Israeli society and Israeli economics. If you want to maintain a military regime, you have to more and more be involved in spying on people for political reasons, which are not quite the same as defending Israel against terrorism. It's a whole other thing.
And it's not just a domestic issue. Israel's reported surveillance of the Iranian nuclear talks was also a thorn in the side of American officials.
And the irony is, of course, that the US helped the Israelis develop the capability of spying on the Iranians the way they do. So for some people within the US intelligence agency, this was not a happy moment when they realized, or they concluded, that the Israelis were using American capability to spy on American negotiations and diplomacy with the Iranians. And while they have this healthy respect for the Israelis, for a foreign government to be doing that was, for the Americans, a bridge too far.
The economic perks of Israel's cybersecurity expertise are obvious across the country. But those capabilities are designed to support a very unique security agenda. An agenda that can include spying on everyone from friends and allies to even innocent and vulnerable civilians. It was a company that embraced controversy from the very beginning. For years, Toronto-based Avid Life Media was best known for its dating website, Ashley Madison. The site was promoted as a place for married people looking for casual hookups with other married people. Ashley Madison became really well known for its scandalous services, but also for its provocative ads, like this ridiculous example with an unforgettable jingle.
I'm looking for someone other than my wife. Other than my wife. Ashley Madison's right. I'm looking for someone other than my wife. Other than my wife. Ashley Madison's right.
But in the summer of 2015, Ashley Madison, a site built entirely on the principle of cheating covertly, was hacked and exposed. Everybody from the FBI and the Canadian feds got involved, even the local Toronto cops.
On July 12th, when several Avid Life Media employees arrived at work and powered up their laptops, a threatening message popped up on their screens, which was accompanied by the song Thunderstruck by AC/DC, which was playing.
The company had been hacked by a mysterious group who called themselves the Impact Team. The hackers demanded that Avid Life Media shut down its sites right away and for good, or they'd release customer records, profiles with all the customers' secret sexual fantasies, credit card transactions, real names, and company emails. At the time of the hack, Avid Life, the parent company of Ashley Madison, claimed millions of dollars in annual profits.
On the surface, it's a totally controversial company because it's designed to help people break their marriage vows. But there's nothing illegal about that. And it had 5 million members at the time. It was supposedly printing money.
Tom Watson is an investigative reporter who profiled Avid Life for Canadian Business Magazine. That was back in 2010 when the company was trying to go public, which meant Avid Life Media needed to convince Canadian banks it was a solid investment for their customers.
Financial markets, investment bankers are not the moral compass of society, right? No one looks to them to play that role. And being a business journalist at the time, I wanted to look at it strictly from the standpoint of what's an investment banker supposed to do. But also being a journalist, I decided I should learn a bit more about the company. So I signed up, and one of the first things I found was that not all women on the site were there just to break wedding vows.
Tom requested an interview with GMP, the lead bank preparing to back Avid Life. The bankers agreed to chat, and he went to their office on a Friday afternoon.
And they sat down, and their key messages were pretty clear. You know, Tom, we're an investment bank. That's a banking opportunity, clear cut. It's legal. You can make money. We're bringing it forward to our clients. And so I said, okay, that's great. That's what I expected to say. I just have one other question. And I read this posting that I had found on Ashley Madison from an 18-year-old student who basically said her mother's broke, her dad's a deadbeat, never met him, she can't afford school, So if you're the kind of guy who wants to help me pay my bills, I can help you in other ways. And the posting was pretty clear that it was in physical ways. It's not two people breaking wedding vows. It's financial gain for one, sex for the other, and blood drained from the faces of the guys in the room. At that point, they called an end to the meeting, and I got a call Monday morning, and they said that the deal was dead from their point of view.
AvidLife's lawyers denied the site was designed to promote prostitution, but the IPO attempt still fell through, and the company still wanted to go public. But at that point, it was common knowledge that investing in AvidLife Media might be risky business.
When the first IPO blew up, it had 5 million members, and they were seen as a significant investment opportunity, but the brokers and deal makers were afraid of them. So how do you tackle that problem? Probably the best way to try again is to have more members, to be even more of a good business case, right? The bigger the investment opportunity, the less people are worried about the risk, right? If you jump forward to when they were hacked, they had something like 37 million members.
In only a few years, Ashley Madison's membership skyrocketed, which in theory should draw in a new set of bankers to back an IPO. But how had Ashley Madison lured in so many new customers so quickly?
Chris, how you doing?
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Chris Russell is one of the people who signed up for the site, and it really didn't take long for him to become a more than dissatisfied customer.
So out of all the dating sites you could have picked, why did you pick Ashley Madison?
It was a curiosity thing more than anything. I was separated at the time. I wasn't looking for a relationship.
Yeah, because what attracted you to their website? Was it just the fact
It was
that
their
there?
advertising. They made it sound like it was this discreet, active community of people, you know, meeting and hooking up and looking for each other.
And for a guy who's separated and looking for a casual thing, it's
right, you know.
Seems like the right spot to look. So walk me through exactly what it was like to sign up for it.
It was basically free to set up a profile. And then a couple days later, or even the next day, I want to say, I started getting emails that this girl checked out your profile. She's interested in you, or, you know, you would get different things and the picture would be blurred. And if you want to talk to this person, you're going to have to buy these tokens or credit. So after a few days of that, I'm like, well, this is kind of hot. Let me see what's going on here.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and put in my credit card information, bought the tokens, tried to talk to people, but never got any response back.
Did you have any conversation with a real woman?
Just once.
Chris is now part of a class action suit that accuses AvidLife Media of fraudulent and deceitful actions. He's one of the few Ashley Madison users who was willing to put his name on the lawsuit and even appear on camera for us. Just 3 months after he closed his account, Ashley Madison got hacked. The hackers demanded that the parent company shut down its sites immediately and permanently. That didn't happen, and a month later, the hackers released a message with the heading, "Time's Up." In that message, they claim to have explained the fraud, deceit, and stupidity of AvidLife Media and their members. Now everyone gets to see their data. Over the next 5 days, the hackers posted links to download the data in 3 batches.
This hack is one of the largest data breaches in the world, and is very unique on its own that it exposed tens of millions of people's personal information. A third message was received wherein the impact team taunts the CEO, "Hey Noel, you can admit it's real now."
In the summer of 2015, a group of hackers struck AvidLife Media, the parent company of Ashley Madison. After breaking into the database of the dating site for cheating spouses, the hackers dumped a huge trove of embarrassing data.
37 million. That's how many email addresses hackers may have released that allegedly belong to Ashley Madison customers.
Looking for someone other than the wife.
The website that encourages customers to cheat on a spouse.
Life is short. Have an affair.
Annalee Newitz is a journalist and author based in San Francisco. She couldn't wait to get her hands on the Ashley Madison data.
Does that make you feel weird? You have all this like personal data
I feel very protective of it.
Yeah.
I want to protect those people, and I want to only understand them as anonymous blips and like as patterns. I wanted to reveal their behavior only in this super anonymous way, and it's super sad. You know, you don't want anyone to be hurt by this stuff.
But Annalee's analysis of the data revealed something unexpected, and it wasn't about the people who signed up for the service. It was starting to look like most of the female members of Ashley Madison were the creations of programmers. In other words, they were essentially fembots.
So initially, I believed, based on looking at the database, that there were basically 0 women on the site. And as the story evolved and I got more data and looked through it more, it turned out that, in fact, there were some women. They had about 5% real women. But what became very interesting was when I figured out that there were 70,000 fembots on the site, and they were the women that were doing most of the chatter.
Ashley Madison isn't the first site to use fake women. It's thought to be a widespread industry practice. US regulators took action against another dating service for doing the same thing, and that company paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to settle the case. But the sheer epic size of Ashley Madison's bot army dwarfed anything seen before.
So what were these bots actually doing?
So Ashley Madison had this problem, which is that they had 95% men on a heterosexual site for hooking up with ladies, right? And so what they would do is they would create fake profiles of women, and then they had software code, bot code, that would bring those profiles to life. And these bots would send messages and emails to men who had signed up but hadn't yet paid. And in order to read a message from a woman on the site, you had to pay to have a conversation with what turned out to be just some PHP code saying, hey, want a cyber? That was one of the things that the bots
said, hey, want a cyber?
Yeah. They're pretty much the simplest, dumbest bots you could possibly imagine.
Because you couldn't have like an actual scripted conversation with them, like,
you
hey, what's up?
You couldn't even really have a conversation. I mean, you could respond to them, and then you'd have to pay to see their response, and you would just ultimately never get anything. And what we see in the company emails is that the people running the company knew very well that that was their business model, and that the vast majority of their conversions of unpaid customers to paying members were as a result of a man either contacting a bot or being contacted by a bot. All right, so right now we're in the MySQL database with all of the accounts of all the people who signed up for Ashley Madison starting in 2002. Right here, number 10, so that's the 10th person to ever sign up, was a bot, and that's Sensuous Kitten. And then their second bot was Sexy Gal and Honey Bunch and Princess.
And how are these bots actually made, though? Was it just like somebody going on a Google image search and snatching pictures of ladies, or like what was it?
So they hired a bunch of people to go and actually harvest photos from inactive accounts that had been created by women who joined any number of the Avid Life Media properties. And they'd take those photos and they'd put them into a new profile, pay women to spend all day typing in fake information into these profiles, and then that would become part of their bot army. It sort of seemed to me like the ultimate dystopia, because it's a bunch of men in this community who are searching for women. The men aren't allowed to talk to each other, so all of the real humans in the community are prevented from talking to each other and are forced to talk to bots. And those bots are mostly cobbled together out of the dead accounts of real women. So it's kind of like a bunch of men in cages talking to zombie robot women. And I can't think of anything more sad than that.
That's a really horrible picture you've just weaved.
It just made me so, I was like, think of all those
That might just be the internet.
In the summer of 2015, a mysterious group calling itself the Impact Team hacked Ashley Madison, dumping nearly 10 gigabytes of sensitive and revealing data. Eric Cabetas is a hacker and security consultant based in New York. The day of the dump, he went straight to work on the data, looking for clues about the identity of the hackers. I met him at a bar in Brooklyn.
Hey. Hey, how's it going? What's up, Eric? Ben, nice to meet you.
Club Europa,
yeah.
Big red door. It's a really like bright, clean looking place to talk about Ashley Madison.
Yeah, it's
So this place used to be a Eastern European club.
Nice.
Where you would hear more Polish than anything else.
That's wicked.
So we don't know how advanced it was to initially get in there, but what they did when they got in there was dump all the emails, all the internal data, everything on the customers, and that was really like the big impact of the Ashley Madison hack.
And who is the impact team? Is there any idea?
Not me. So, you know, that's the big question. Everyone wants to know that. You, me, the police, everyone wants to know that. All the data that they leaked were scrubbed and cleaned of metadata. Everything that they released on anonymous networks, and everything was done through crowdsourced seeding like BitTorrent. Nobody has found anything, any smoking gun, or even just like a shadow of a fingerprint.
In the wake of the news, reports surfaced that some Ashley Madison users were US government employees and even members of the military. This led to speculation that foreign governments could use the data to blackmail or extort US officials. Florida State Attorney Jeff Ashton was the only US government official to publicly admit he used Ashley Madison.
I deeply regret my affiliation with the site, which has caused a great amount of stress and heartache to my wife and children.
What do you think a foreign intelligence agency could do with this?
The intelligence community likes to keep data like this private so that they can exploit it themselves. But once it's out there in the open source world, they tend to not use it as much because it's not that private secret data that they can operationalize and use their capabilities for.
If you're a black hat hacker or some criminal organization doing this for some financial gain, what do you do with the data?
You don't release it publicly. So if they would have reached out to each individual and said, we will release all this data, and tried to extort people en masse, all of the customers of Ashley Madison, that might have been a little bit more of a black hat financial motivation.
So have you ever seen anything like this before in terms of the motivations behind it?
If the stated motivation is the actual motivation, if really a hacktivist who wants to keep Western society chaste and good, I've not seen something like this for that goal. To this level ever.
Well, then what do you make of impact teams saying that they're pissed off about the fraud that Ashley Madison's been up to?
So that's very interesting because the initial motivation, or the two stated motivations, are one being kind of like this, we don't like what you're doing as a core concept, and the other being, we don't like that you're making additional money off of pretending to delete people's data. The service that they were providing, which was a full delete of all of your personally identifiable information, was not actually happening. The information was still retained in logs and backups and various other things. Who would hack into a company and do a data leak of this magnitude because they feel that they're ripping a customer off?
So you look forward to the day to actually figure out who it is?
I do and I don't, because I mean, everyone always gets caught. It'd be funny just to see somebody not get caught.
After Avid Life Media was hacked, things took a dark turn. We'll probably never know for sure, but reports surfaced that several Ashley Madison users killed themselves over being exposed. A pastor in New Orleans specifically cited the hack in his suicide note. Avid Life CEO Noel Biederman resigned. But to this day, no one knows who Impact Team is, or if this was the outcome they even wanted.
Joseph? Ben? How you doing? Good to meet.
Joseph Cox is a freelance reporter for Motherboard, Vice's tech and science site that covers cybersecurity. He landed the only published interview with the Impact Team, an email Q&A.
The way I went about is I contacted somebody I'd spoken to before, and I had a feeling they would know how to get in touch with Impact Team. I asked them for a contact email address. I reach out to Impact Team, not really expecting them to get back. They get back fairly quickly. They refuse to talk on other encrypted channels like instant messaging or something. It all has to be done by email. I fire off a few questions, maybe a dozen or so. They then reply, and then we just run the article pretty straight after that.
So what are the motivations of these hackers?
Well, they claim that they hacked Ashley Madison to expose the website for its fraudulent practices. The site was running something called a full delete feature, where you pay a certain fee, and then the site promises to obviously delete all of your information, because of course it's quite a sensitive site. They claim that this wasn't happening, and they found evidence of this in the data, and they released it to sort of vindicate these customers. But it gets a bit hazy, because then in conversations with me, they also describe Avid Life Media, the company that owns Ashley Madison, as feeding drug users in the same way that a drug dealer might feed heroin addicts.
Out of pure speculation, who do you think these people are?
All I can glean is that they were experienced, they were obviously highly motivated, they knew what they wanted, and they went to pretty extreme lengths to get it and to embarrass this company.
You know, the one thing that I find interesting about this particular case is that if you look at a lot of the other major hacks, the hackers keep popping up. What happened to Impact Team?
I don't think anybody's come across evidence that Impact Team struck again. In the interview, they said that they might come back and hit other companies. As far as I know, and according to public information, they haven't hit back.
Do you think that this hack did a lot of damage? Like, what was the end impact?
I think it was a watershed moment or a wake-up call for like ordinary people who might sign up to these services years ago, or they might just use them fairly regularly. They probably realized that, shit, you know, my secrets, which are just stored on somebody's server somewhere, there's a real chance that they might become public, and that might have real consequences upon my life. I think it was a real kick in the teeth for just ordinary people. But the company is still operating, and a few months after the hack, Ashley Madison even claimed that there were more customers now, but considering all the bullshit they had around bots and fake user accounts, I mean, you should seriously take that with a pinch of salt as well.
Avid Life Media is currently being investigated by the US Federal Trade Commission and still faces a class action lawsuit by former members. But Ashley Madison is trying to repair its rocky relationship with its customers despite its ongoing legal troubles. A year after the hack, Avid Life announced it was rebranding with a new name, Ruby, and a new set of commercials for Ashley Madison.
Are you reading? Did you choose? Can you see into the future? Are you listening? Are you scared? Will you know it when you see it?
The company denied all our requests to talk about the hack, and after the relaunch, we reached out again for comment, but they declined. I guess they're just trying to move on, but Ruby's new CEO has made one sacred vow: no more fembots. They call them 0 days. Hackers hunt for them, but most people have no idea what they are. Put simply, a 0 day is a flaw in a specific piece of software. A vulnerability that the software company doesn't even know about. That code could be running on everything from your iPhone to the webcam on your computer, to the network protecting the Pentagon. And if these holes aren't fixed with new code, hackers can design exploits, or figurative torpedoes, to attack the software. Charlie Miller discovered one of the most mind-blowing 0 days in recent history. He's a former NSA hacker and a world-renowned security researcher based in St. Louis. Back in 2015, he and a partner actually found a way to remotely hack into Chrysler models with a specific computer system. And they could do it from thousands of miles away. And it wasn't just turning the music up or jacking the AC, they could seriously mess up a car on the road. I got in touch with Charlie and asked him if he'd hack one of these cars while I was behind the wheel.
I'm Ben. Charlie, how's it going? So this is the car? This is it? Yeah, you ready to get hacked? Yeah.
So what part of this car exactly did you target that was hackable?
So this part right here, it's called the head unit, and that's the part that we actually hacked. The fact it's on the internet meant we could talk to it, and there was a vulnerability that allowed us to actually get code running on it. We could do it remotely, but we told Chrysler about it, and they fixed it, so now you can't do it remotely anymore.
How long did it take for them to patch it?
Well, Chris and I told them about it, and for 9 months they were working on it, and then once we sort of publicized it, then they fixed it within a week. So it was, once everyone was really upset, they fixed it very quickly. So now I'm physically plugged into the head unit. Okay, so I can start showing you some stuff here.
What was the I guess, more dangerous thing you could do to the car with this particular hack?
Probably the most scary thing we can do is when you come to a stop, we can make it to where then the brakes stop working and then you'll start going again. So we're stopped.
Yeah.
But now we're not stopped.
Oh man, I don't like that sound at all.
Yeah, I know. So the brake pedal just doesn't go down.
Jeez.
Okay, so you want to see like some steering and stuff?
Yeah, let's see some steering.
Okay, so get somewhere where we can go backwards.
So in reverse, you can, oh yeah.
You crank the steering wheel as much as I want.
No hands.
Yep.
That's safe.
Not really.
Is there ever a scenario where you think a hacker could get access to a vulnerability in a car that's connected to the internet that a million cars just could turn off?
I could have done that.
Just like that, even if they were driving on a highway?
I could have made them all the transmissions go to neutral for a million cars.
So including cars that are going, 100 miles an hour?
Yes. Obviously that wasn't my intent.
Right.
My intent was to just demonstrate that
it could happen.
Right. Car companies are so new to this. Like most car companies, you don't even know who you would contact to tell them you found a vulnerability.
But the crazy thing is that even when researchers do tell a car company about a security hole in their software, they're often scorned for discovering it in the first place.
When people complain about people like me who find vulnerabilities, they don't realize that we're not putting the vulnerabilities in the product. They're already there. Reporting the bugs is what gets them fixed, and that's the good thing.
Do you find it ridiculous that companies won't pay for them? Like Chrysler didn't give you anything, right?
No, I didn't really expect them. I think it's more ridiculous when huge companies that have been doing this for a long time and they've got $1 billion in the bank and they tout their security. Like that doesn't make as much sense to me. Like I was a consultant for many years and companies would pay me to come in and find vulnerabilities for them. And it's hard, right? If it wasn't hard, they would find all the vulnerabilities themselves, right? It's like, I feel like, I worked really hard, I should maybe get something for that.
Charlie Miller didn't get a dime for his exploit, but a year later, Chrysler changed its policy. It became the first major car company to introduce a bounty program for hackers who find flaws in its software. And it's not just the Chryslers of the world who are willing to pay for them. 0 days can be worth a lot of money to a software vendor and the security companies who want to patch the holes. At the same time, they can be sold through private brokers for upwards of $500,000 to spy agencies or other covert operators who use them for surveillance or sabotage.
My career as a professional penetration tester, with those skills, obviously, I could have been robbing banks and taking the money, as opposed to being hired by the banks to see how they could be robbed, right?
Katie Mazouras is a security researcher who created Microsoft's first bug bounty program in 2013. She's based in Seattle, but I met her in Vancouver where she was attending a security conference.
People usually like to define them in terms of white market and black market, but black market actually implies that the trading is illegal. And right now, it's not illegal to trade 0 days or exploits. So I usually talk about them in terms of defense market and offense market.
And do you think then that bug bounties are the answer? Do you think hackers, when they find this stuff, they should be disclosing to the company?
Well, my goal with creating bug bounty programs is really about giving hackers more opportunities to not just turn it over to defense, but also make money at the same time. So they don't have to make a choice. Do I do the right thing or do I make money? They can do the right thing and make money. All software contains vulnerabilities. It's just a fact. There are 3 ways you can learn about it. You can find it yourself, you can hire somebody to find it, or pay a bug bounty if someone finds it, or you can be attacked, period.
At the CanSec West conference in Vancouver, hackers are invited to find new ways to break into widely used software, like Safari and Adobe Flash. Here at a competition known as Pwn to Own, the teams face off for nearly $500,000 in prize money. Some teams have been working for months in advance developing and testing their exploits. The flaws they find will be disclosed to the vendors so they can be patched. Whitey, I'm Ben. I met up with a volunteer named Whitey who agreed to show me around. Pwn to Own. So is one of them going down right now? Right here?
Yeah. So it's actually starting right now.
I gotta watch this.
We have 10-cent security team sniper. This is Keen Lab and PC manager. The target is Adobe Flash with system.
These guys are trying to break into a computer using their 0-day exploit for Adobe Flash.
that was really weird.
You know, it's kind of like architecting a program and then getting that one shot to run it and make it run perfectly. And they just did that. And you know, it might seem anticlimactic. It's definitely not hacking that you'd see in a movie, stuff like that.
Oh no.
But this is the real thing.
And yet, what they just did could, like you said, end a company.
Yeah, it could end a company. It could wreak havoc, across the internet.
Tencent security team Sniper was eventually declared the masters of Pwn. The Shanghai-based researchers who work for China's biggest internet company won this ridiculous smoking jacket. They also collected more than $142,000 in prize money. I met up with them after a super tame hacker rap party.
So you won Pwn to own? How's that feel?
Pretty good.
Yeah, relaxed now.
You're relaxed now?
Yeah.
Were you not relaxed before this?
The day before, not very nervous.
Could you have sold those 0 days to somebody else and gotten more money? And if so, why didn't you?
Yes, actually during the Tencent West conference, so some of the private companies come to us.
So somebody actually approached you guys during CanSec West to pay for some of the exploits you had?
Yeah.
Who were they?
No comments.
And you didn't do it? You didn't want to do it?
Yeah, no, we never do it.
Now, the ones you found, the 0 days you found, what do they affect?
When the user browses the internet, if such bug is involved, it can take the user's control and even get a system privilege, which means it will take full control of the system. Our ultimate goal is not to attack, but to defend. Yeah, but if you want to defend and protect more on the user, you need to find the most advanced attacking way. Otherwise, you cannot. You will never know how to defend the user.
For the rest of the year, if you find 0 days, what do you do with them?
We use official channel opened by the vendors.
And you report it?
Yeah, report it.
I'm in Vancouver for a computer security conference, but what I'm really after is more intel on shady 0 day markets. People here tell me I should speak with Emerson Tan. He's worked for a major government contractor, but he's also been a part of the hacking community for years. Tan is a self-described recovering Dark Lord, at least according to his LinkedIn profile.
I hear you have some questions.
I want him to show me what the marketplace for these exploits really looks like.
So can you buy exploits in the black market? Online, dark web?
Well, it depends what you mean. But so, exploits, as you know, come in a couple of different flavors. There are the ones that have already been patched, and then there are the O days. You wouldn't bother, if you're a criminal, you wouldn't bother buying O days. They're just far too expensive. They're very, very expensive. It costs a huge amount of money to test them, to make them reliable. If you're a criminal, you just want the thing that works, and for the lowest cost, for the maximum return.
Well, let's see it. What's it look like?
Let's have a look at a real forum. It's the world's worst web design. It's really cheap and cheesy, and they don't care.
So you can go on there, you buy an exploit, and usually that's an exploit that hasn't been patched.
Well, no, it has been patched.
Or it has been patched.
It has been patched. What you have to remember is that huge numbers of people around the world do not patch their systems, do not patch their software, especially given that a huge amount of the software out there is not legally bought. It's all stolen, it's all nicked. That stuff never gets updated.
So that in that way, you still have a huge attack surface.
Yeah, thousands, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people. I mean, like, this is brilliant. This is an Android phone. It's my Android phone. People put all their personal details and stuff on there, and they, everything you need to go and steal their identity. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant.
But in terms of 0 days, there is no site where you can buy a 0 day.
I mean, I'm sure they exist, but to be perfectly honest with you, if you were a researcher and you really wanted top dollar you wouldn't bother with these open marketplaces. You'd go and talk to a broker. I mean, like, the thing is that this community is tiny. They all know each other.
The brokers know the spies, the criminals, and the researchers.
And the researchers. And then depending on where you are in the world, that's the community that you sell to. It would be very, very odd, for example, for, like a Russian researcher to, to try and sell to a broker who is, I don't know, working for the Americans. And, in somewhere like China or Russia, selling to the opposition will get you a visit from some men in very ill-fitting leather jackets, maybe with a hose or a baseball bat.
Right. Have you ever dealt with an intelligence agency?
We'll shuffle that question off to the side. I can neither confirm or deny, which is Beltway speak for some answer other than no. So here's the weird thing, though, is that almost everybody has done it.
Yeah.
At some point. If you ever meet anyone who says they're whiter than white, they're lying.
One of the reasons that researchers are so easily tempted to sell 0 days to spy agencies is that governments are willing to pay a high price just so they can hack specific targets. Finding a 0 day can also earn you a big payoff from software companies who buy them in order to patch the holes in their products. Apple recently announced it would pay bug bounties that range from $25,000 to $200,000, depending on the vulnerability. Some bug hunters do that work as a side gig, but a select few can actually earn a living finding 0 days. Mark Litchfield is a professional bug hunter who says he's earned hundreds of thousands of dollars in bug bounties over the past few years. I headed to the gated community outside of Las Vegas where he lives and works.
Oh my. Wow. It's got that baller gated community life. Hello.
How you doing? Hold on a minute.
No problem.
They say no. The association said no camera. Can't go back there unless he get it clear with them. Now, I don't think so.
She just showed up in a golf cart. What do they think we're doing? Do you remember when the White House and the FBI was easier to shoot in?
We didn't manage to penetrate the perimeter of Mark Litchfield's gated community, so we met Mark and his wife, Carly Lynn, at a nearby restaurant.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
Nice to meet you. Sorry about all that trouble.
Hey, no problem. How was the trip?
I'm Ben. It was good. Nice to meet you. Yeah, it was good. I didn't realize it'd be that secure.
It's a gated community, I guess.
Yeah, it was, they brought the whole, golf cart brigade onto us.
Yeah, they actually come up to the house.
I half expected them to be armed, but I don't think they were. So is it tough to make a living off of finding 0 days? You seem to have a pretty good lifestyle here.
Yeah, I do okay.
What's the most you've ever gotten paid for 1 0 day?
On the bug bounty programs is $15,000.
Just for one?
Just for one, yeah.
Okay, so let's say you're doing your thing in your house and you find a 0 day in a particularly large user base software.
Okay.
What do you do with it? Do you report it?
Interesting question. The first reaction would be yes, report it, absolutely. But the second part of this is, with everything that's going on right now, my personal view on this is some states could make better use of this bug than just giving it to the vendor.
So what do you mean by what's going on nowadays?
ISIS, North Korea. I mean, so much crap going on. If an opportunity came my way whereby I could give a 0 day vulnerability to an agency, whoever, someone that could use this, then I would absolutely give it to them and not report it.
Have you ever done that before? Have you ever sold a 0 day to a government?
No.
If you did sell to a government a 0 day, would you tell me?
No.
A good poker face for a guy who lives in Las Vegas?
I don't play poker.
Unpatched flaws in software can be used to hack into almost anything that runs on code, from a smartphone to a car. Those flaws, known as 0 days, are bought and sold to companies and governments. The US sometimes uses 0 day exploits for attack purposes, but there are also official guidelines about when they're supposed to be disclosed to the software vendor. The rules are an attempt to balance the public's interest in protecting internet safety and the government's interest in acquiring intelligence.
So you can certainly imagine that if we discovered that and learned about a vulnerability in, say, a piece of software that was either widely used within the US government, our allies, or within our critical infrastructure, that it might be in our interest to actually purchase it so we could make sure that there was a patch for it.
I went to Washington to meet with Michael Daniel. He's the cybersecurity coordinator in the Obama administration.
And when does, say, the NSA sit on a vulnerability?
If you sort of look at those criteria for disclosure and imagine the inverse, right? That you've got a situation where we have a vulnerability that's in a very limited set of software or hardware that's not used very broadly, that might be frequently employed by our adversaries, that would provide us a unique access that we can't get any other way. Those are the kinds of things that we would retain.
Michael Daniel wouldn't get more specific about the type of 0 days the government holds on to, or the number.
What I can say is that we are going to bring the full array of U.S. national power to bear to protect U.S. interests and those of our allies.
But not everyone is comfortable leaving it up to the U.S. government to judge what to do with a 0 day. Chris Segoyan is a privacy activist who tracks the 0 day market, and he's been sounding the alarm for years.
Why are you so critical of companies that are selling 0 days to the US government or any government?
I really feel that there should be a public debate around the government's role in the 0 day market. I've been really bothered by the fact that for 5 or 10 years there's been a conversation in Washington, D.C. about cybersecurity, that this was a missing piece. And this is an essential piece.
Who are the US government agencies targeting when they're using 0 day exploits?
It really depends. So for the NSA, that could be foreign leaders, it could be foreign corporations who have information that the US government believes is of national security interest. It could be terrorists. On the law enforcement side, the FBI has attempted to hack people who've downloaded or shared child porn, people who've called in bomb threats to schools. It really runs the range of the most horrific and serious crime to things that are, sort of teenagers making prank calls at home.
Because I guess that's the thing, though, is it's easy to be very critical of it because it sounds on the surface pretty malevolent, but then there may be instances where 0 days is used to hack into a terrorist's computer. It's the classic argument, right?
I'm less focused, I'm less interested on who they use it against and more on what are the side effects of the government's acquisition and stockpiling and use of that vulnerability or that exploit. A couple years ago, protests in Ferguson happened, and Americans wake up to their morning newspapers showing photographs of armored personnel carriers, police wearing camouflage, holding machine guns, and realizing that suddenly their law enforcement had become militarized. They got to see the trickle-down effect, where technologies that are designed for the military and the intelligence community eventually trickle down first to the feds and then to state and local law enforcement agencies. And this has happened with armored personnel carriers, it's happened with tear gas, it's happened with SWAT teams and drones and license plate readers, and it will almost certainly happen with 0 days. And when you give those tools to people who are going to be operating them without much training and without much oversight, we're going to see abuses. We're going to see police officers spying on their ex-spouses or their next door neighbor who's pissing them off. I don't think that America is ready for local cops to be hacking into computers, but we are definitely on our way there.
But it's not just the local cops. Spy agencies and hackers everywhere want them, and they're not just for surveillance. They can be weaponized to take over any physical object running on code, from a cell phone to an SUV to a power plant. And that means that if 0 days fall into the wrong hands, they can be real threats to your privacy, individual freedom, and even personal safety. But as it stands, there's no real consensus on whose hands are the wrong hands. For more than 2 years, the so-called Islamic State has been waging war in Iraq and Syria. ISIS members and fanboys on Twitter and YouTube spread propaganda, while others deface websites and penetrate networks for intel. One IS hacker and British expat named Junaid Hussain was such a threat the CIA placed him number 3 on its kill list, before a drone strike in Syria eventually killed him in 2015. I first reported on Anonymous's anti-ISIS campaign in the summer of 2014. But after the Paris attacks a year later, the Hacktivist Collective issued a declaration.
Ces attentats ne peuvent pas rester impunis. C'est pourquoi les Anonymous du monde entier vont vous traquer. Oui, vous les vermines qui tuent les pauvres innocents. Oui, nous allons vous traquer. La guerre est déclenchée. Préparez-vous.
Members of Anonymous have been taking down Islamic State websites, flagging Twitter accounts for removal, hacking targets, and of course, generally just trolling ISIS. But some members are actively collaborating with governments, and that tactic has caused a major rift in the collective. It also raises questions about the thin line governments are walking when it comes to cooperation with online vigilantes. I'm at Speaker's Corner in London to meet Nafis Hamid, an expert on terrorism and Islamic radicalization.
Speaker's Corner has this history of freedom of speech. People can get up there on their soapbox and basically talk about whatever they want to.
Including people who support ISIS.
Yeah. They can't say they support ISIS, but they can basically support all the goals of ISIS. They can support the caliphate, they can reject democracy.
Nafis is a researcher who focuses on the psychology of terrorism, and he's interviewed dozens of ISIS sympathizers and fighters across Europe. I wanted to better understand the effectiveness of the Islamic State's online operations.
So let's talk about recruitment, but specifically social media.
All right.
So how does something like a YouTube video influence some kid who's in Birmingham to pick up and head to the Islamic Caliphate?
Usually when someone goes online, goes on Twitter, and let's say makes an effort to reach out to someone who's either an ISIS supporter or an active member of ISIS, they follow them or they tweet them or something. In a very short amount of time, they're just all of a sudden surrounded by all these supporters. Like sometimes thousands of people in a matter of hours will just start following a particular individual who just posted a video or made contact with someone in the group. And then you just want to inundate that person's Twitter wall with all sorts of videos of what's going on in Syria. And then in the midst of all of that horror that they're seeing coming from the Shia militias, from the regimes, from the impotence of Western countries to step in, then they'll see an ISIS propaganda video that shows an Iraqi soldier being beheaded or killed. And that kind of gives them some kind of catharsis. That gives them a feeling of revenge. It makes them seem like heroes.
And it used to be pretty easy to reach out online and contact bona fide ISIS operators in Iraq or Syria. In fact, my chats with one alleged ISIS operative from Canada landed me in court. The Canadian feds wanted me to fork over all of my communications with Farah Mohammed Shirdan. That case is ongoing, and I'm still facing the threat of jail time.
These ISIS operatives, I mean, for a little while, they weren't that hard to find either. They're just like a Twitter link away, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would even attach their, whether it was Kik or different encrypted chat network name.
Yeah.
And then you just download the app, contact them.
Exactly, yeah. It was super easy to talk to them. It was kind of out in the open. I think from an intelligence agency point of view, this probably serves some purpose because you could monitor some of this stuff.
It might be a bit harder now to contact members of ISIS online, but a few years ago, when they were still out in the open, the US government decided to fight fire with shoddy social media fire.
We noticed that in 2013, there was an increase in terrorist propaganda in English. And no one in the world, not just the US, had ever done anything to try to address this.
Alberto Fernandez was a US diplomat for more than 3 decades. A fluent Arabic speaker, he led the State Department's program to counteract ISIS messaging online. His group produced anti-ISIS videos in many languages. I remember being baffled when their English language campaign, known as Think Again, Turn Away, launched online in 2013.
Why don't you tell me about Think Again, Turn Away?
Think Again, Turn Away was basically a kind of a cheap, zero-budget effort to address the rise of ISIS propaganda in foreign languages, including English.
هلموا فليست سوريا للسوريين وليس العراق للعراقيين.
What the f*** are you doing? The State Department has genuinely created a sarcastic parody recruitment video for ISIS that begins with the words, "Run, do not walk to ISIS land." And you are banking a lot on any potential militants understanding that that is sarcasm. Oh, you know what? I was just about to join ISIS, but then I saw your very clever video.
The criticism that people have had is ridiculous. That somehow trolling with these people brings us down to their level.
To some way it does.
Well, the problem with this is that they've had free reign for years where nobody said a thing. How did that work out?
What do you think about Anonymous and their operations against these accounts?
Certainly, the idea of having more entities going after the adversary's material is a good thing. That's what ISIS has, right? ISIS has ISIS people doing stuff, and then it has fanboys.
All over the world.
You need a network to fight a network. You need a swarm to fight a swarm.
And Anonymous is part of that swarm.
It should be, yes.
I'm in Toronto to meet with an anti-ISIS activist who calls herself Sneaker. She joined a group called GhostSec in 2015. She basically combs the internet and dark web, collecting intel on ISIS and assessing whether that information should be passed to the authorities. Because Anonymous is such a loosely connected group, there are often divisions within the hacktivist collective. And many Anons condemn GhostSec's collaboration with governments, but Sneaker sees herself as a member of both groups. She was reluctant to talk to us at first, but finally agreed to meet if we promised not to reveal any of her personal details, and if she could wear that white mask you're seeing.
We just want to help as many people as we can.
What motivates you every day to get up and you just want to hunt terrorists?
Every attack that we've had, whether it's Paris or Belgium or, one of the U.S. attacks, San Bernardino, and not only the deaths, but, they're enslaving little girls. The way they treat people in the caliphate, including children, is what does it. I mean, we have to do something.
So GhostSec is working with the FBI in the U.S. government.
Well,
and also with Anonymous.
Well, we are Anonymous. Yeah, we're part of Anonymous. But we don't have a formal arrangement. We simply send them the intel, like any citizen, who's spot something suspicious, and they might call. So that's all we're doing.
How do you feel about some people in Anonymous who think you guys are just being rats to the government?
If we come across something that's going to thwart an attack, save somebody's lives, you want us to just sit on the information and not share it with the government? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The government just isn't able to do as much as they should, so we're just helping out.
And you do think you are doing something that they can't do?
Well, we know that for a fact.
So how do anti-ISIS activists get their information to the authorities? Michael Smith is a counterterrorism advisor to Congress. He once acted as the middleman between Sneaker's group and the government. But infighting within GhostSec led to another split. And now Smith only deals with the newest faction, known as Ghost Security Group, which, confusingly, sounds a lot like the original group's name.
So they reached out to me because they were interested in finding somebody who might be able to determine whether or not some of the information that they were collecting could be utilized for counterterrorism operational purposes. And honestly, I thought, well, okay, let's just see what it is that they're picking up on. I knew that they were touting that they were instrumental in closing tens of thousands of Islamic State managed accounts on Twitter and elsewhere in social media. And very quickly, they demonstrated that they were drilling down into these networks in ways that were helping to gather information about recruitment programs and, in some cases, even attack plots in various places in the world. A notable example of that was a plot to strike in Tunisia around the 4th of July last year.
Tunisia? But has it only been Tunisia, and was that plot actually stopped?
Well, the plot was stopped, certainly. I received some indication that the information was useful in helping to identify a cell and some planned activity there. There have been other examples, but I can't really get into the specifics of that.
So wait, you get this information, okay, and then who do you pass it to? Do you have like a speed dial for the FBI?
Well, I know people in different agencies and have points of contact, and historically I would look at the information and say, all right, based on, let's say, Tunisia, where is that going to be most appropriate in terms of the flow of information?
Ghost security. Are they doing things that the government can't, that the NSA can't? Because they'll claim they are. You're having trouble with that one.
Well, what's different with Ghost Security Group is that they're not answering to masters in government. They can go out and do things that perhaps would require a lot more time and energy just to develop approvals and policies and even just basic protocols for various agencies to pursue that type of activity.
So that's a great little situation if you're the US government. You can let some guys go off for hackers and pretty much do what they want unchained, and then also get the intelligence from it.
Well, I guess in theory.
Strange bedfellows is what I'm saying.
In 2015, Anonymous declared war on ISIS.
La guerre est déclenchée. Préparez-vous.
The collective and various subgroups have since taken down ISIS websites and flagged Twitter accounts for removal. Some have even shared intel with the US government. But many Anonymous members think that these tactics violate the collective's core beliefs. Discording is one of Anonymous's most influential voices. He's an OG Anon and the brains behind some of the group's most iconic videos. He Skyped me from somewhere in Europe.
You joined in 2010 and you were around in 2011, which was really the heyday. What did Anonymous mean then?
Anonymous then really meant sticking it up to the powerful people, to the governments, to the security contractors.
Now, Anonymous is kind of almost working with the government. Some of their sects are feeding things to the government.
I think that is extremely dangerous to be working with the government, because we will continue to wage operations against governments, and when they're working with us, they could try to prevent those operations by infiltrating us like they're doing now. I would never give anything to the FBI because they arrested so many of my friends, and I don't agree with their method of operations.
So I know obviously you don't like this operation against ISIS, but can you describe to me how deep the division really is within Anonymous?
I think you could almost call it a civil war. It's that bad. Because the old Anonymous people are really doing this for the freedom of information, for the freedom of expression. And these Operation ISIS people are running ineffective operations to gain media attention.
But, I mean, if I can play devil's advocate, is it really so bad that Anonymous is going after a group that, mass beheads individuals, uses sex slaves?
Of course, no one likes them. I totally agree with you. But hacking ISIS would be good, releasing that information to the public instead of law enforcement. Then the world can know what they are up to on the internet. But these censorship campaigns don't solve anything.
Should ISIS even be censored at all?
No. I mean, nothing should be censored. I am for an unregulated internet. People can see how horrible it is what they do, so they shouldn't be censored, they should be opposed.
A lot of US officials talk about the battle for hearts and minds when it comes to counterterrorism. Well, General David Petraeus was one of the chief architects of that exact strategy. A military legend with a scandalous fall, he was commander of the surge in Iraq, commander of US forces in Afghanistan, and then the director of the CIA.
Cyberspace, the internet, this is a new battle space. We had ground and then sea and air and subsea and space, and now you have cyberspace. And increasingly, there are battles being fought there. These are battles of ideas, and they have to be joined.
Anons like Discordian believe that governments working with Anonymous are actively infiltrating the hacktivist group. General Petraeus doesn't talk much about the CIA and Anonymous publicly, but he agreed to meet me at his Manhattan office to discuss this online war. And I wasn't exactly expecting him to be candid.
There are people who've said that there's been a lot of infiltration of a group like Anonymous because it's so open, anyone can just join. Was there a perspective in the US intelligence community that going after a group like Anonymous and getting inside of it was a possibility?
Obviously not something I would ever discuss, but nice try.
And what do you think about something like Anonymous going after ISIS online and then passing information to the US government?
Well, individuals passing information to the U.S. government is a long-standing practice. This is why we have tip lines. But we have to be very, very careful because just as we did not allow vigilantism or illegal activity on the ground when we partnered with individuals who used to either tacitly or even actively oppose us, You can't allow certain activities in cyberspace. You certainly can't promote them, even just because they may be aligned with our interests or our objectives. So they have to be used very, very carefully, I think, if they are used at all. And I think that the law enforcement organizations and the intelligence agencies have been very careful, in fact, in their relationships with such groups.
Some people within Anonymous that we've spoken to say that the US government isn't doing enough and it forced them to intervene. Do you think that that's true?
I don't think you'd find an argument in the US government about whether or not more should be done. There are always limits, however. There's never been a general who had enough troops, enough funding, enough bandwidth, now enough unmanned aerial vehicles, and the same is true when it comes to cyberspace.
The online battle between ISIS and Anonymous has created unusual alliances and deep divisions within the hacktivist collective. Some Anons believe collaborating with governments is snitching, but others are willing to do whatever it takes to fight the terror group.
When you think about what I see every day, the beheadings, everything is graphic and violent, and they are getting worse and worse to scare more and more people. We're there to show you these things, to get help to report these things and get it offline, so other people don't have to see it at all.
Micro initially joined Anonymous to fight ISIS, and then he started his own group called ControlSec. He devised a way to crowdsource the reporting of suspected ISIS accounts to Twitter en masse, so the company can pull them down.
Are you saving lives, you think?
Well, we have prevented terrorist attacks in Tunisia. The target was actually the market in Jeddah. They were trying to damage as much Jews and French people as possible. We are actively infiltrating ISIS and gathering information. It's not just accounts, that's just what you guys see.
So in Tunisia, when you knew the attack was coming, what did you do with the intelligence?
We delivered it to the American authorities, and they handed over to the Tunisian authorities. We actually read about it in the news.
What was that moment like?
Well, that was an amazing feeling, knowing that you actually damaged them that hard that they couldn't do what they wanted to do at all.
What do you think of people who say that ControlSec or Anonymous fighting ISIS this way, you're kind of aligning with the military-industrial complex and the goals of the US government?
If you can help ensuring national security in a country we know there is a threat, I'm going to scream as loud as I can to get it out there and stop it. If I hear it's going to blow up in your town, I will contact the ones who can go out and stop that in the shortest amount of time.
So how far is Anonymous straying from its basic principles in its fight against ISIS? A hacker since his teenage years, Greg Hoosh was part of a notorious software piracy ring until he was busted by the FBI. After a stint in federal prison, he became one of the original members of Anonymous. He sold school, he was an Anon before the Guy Fawkes mask was even a thing.
ISIS are a natural enemy of, what Anonymous stands for.
And
if it stands
else.
for anything, freedom is a big piece of it. Anti-censorship is another big piece of it.
At the same time, what about that government collaboration? Because you're a guy who was a black hat hacker in the criminal world, ran away from the FBI for a while, and now the thing that you helped found is now collaborating with the very enemy that you once had.
A lot of Anons don't agree with working with the government at all on this. Right it up to them being right, which I think, right it up to them being mad about all their friends who are in jail.
I mean, you're a collaborator at that point.
Yeah, at that point, you're a collaborator with someone who has shown themselves to be, mostly the enemy to people like you.
But just because Greg opposes collaboration with the government, it doesn't mean he opposes the direct confrontation with ISIS.
So if you look at the stuff that ControlSec is doing, GhostSec, Op-Ice ISIS, what does it all mean in the end? Is it actually achieving anything?
So this is a question I get asked a lot. What do you hope to achieve? What in the grand scheme of things did this do? Maybe there would have been more attacks in other countries because, the recruiters online that were shut down by Anonymous would have reached people that were ready and willing if they had only been talked to. If one bomb didn't go off because of what Anonymous did, then victory. But the other angle is the continuing activation of young people. When you see acts like this, you see the world is currently in a terrible state. There's a lot that needs to get done, and you don't have to have 12 years of college and be a senator. You don't have to be someone in a position of power. You can be sitting at home and affecting the world.
Anonymous is challenging the online operations of one of the most prolific terrorist organizations on Earth, trying to do real damage. The campaign has raised questions about how the government cooperates with online vigilantes. But whether or not its operations are doing anything to stop ISIS, the campaign has definitely taken its toll on Anonymous itself. And some members are asking if the collective will ever be the same again.
That's popping up.
When I reported from the front lines in eastern Ukraine for Vice, I saw firsthand the raging war between Russian-backed separatists and the Ukrainian military. Since 2013, Ukraine has been in a state of turmoil. That's when protests broke out against the pro-Russian government, which led Ukraine's president to skip the country. Then Russia invaded and annexed the Ukrainian territory of Crimea, while Russian-backed separatists started waging war in eastern Ukraine. But on December 23, 2015, a new front in the conflict may have opened up online. That day, hackers attacked 3 power companies, known as Oblenergos in western Ukraine. It's the first known cyber attack that caused outages in a nation's power grid, and it left at least 250,000 people in the dark. The city of Ivano-Frankivsk was one of the ones hit. The operators of the control center agreed to walk me through what happened that day.
This is the dispatch room, control room? Right. Thank you.
Так, спочатку розглянемося, переговоримо.
Це називається мнемосхема або оперативна схема. Вона відображає реальний стан електричної мережі в нашому підприємстві. Тобто ми бачимо кожну підстанцію і зв'язки між цими підстанціями.
Bogdan Soychuk is a deputy director of the control room, which remotely controls dozens of substations around the region.
When did you realize that you were under cyber attack, that it was not just some equipment level mishap, that it was in fact some sort of attacker penetrating your network?
Спочатку прийшло розуміння те, що неправильно працює у нас телеуправління, телемеханіка. Курсор мишки починає бігати і дає команди на вимкнення вимикачами, хоча насправді ніхто не рухає ні клавіатуру, ні мишку. Ми стояли, нічого не, от, як на даний момент. Насправді курсор ось так от бігав по комп'ютеру, от на вимикач став, стається команда і так далі. І от, вимкнення і так далі, розумієте?
Стало зрозуміло, що відбувається якась позаштатна ситуація, і це не є якийсь збій чи програми, чи користувачів. Стало зрозуміло, що це хтось втрутився.
Vladimir Fedek is the deputy director of IT at the power company.
Було несанкціоноване захоплення управління комп'ютерною програмою, за допомогою якої відбувалося керування підстанціями.
As Vladimir and his team tried to figure out what was happening, substations controlled by the utility started shutting down one by one. It happened in the middle of the day, and as the power went out, residents had no way of knowing this wasn't a regular outage, and they were actually in the middle of a very sophisticated cyber attack.
Рішення відімкнути повністю нашу інфраструктуру від зовнішнього світу. Тобто всі канали, які були не з'єднані з інтернетом, ми всі канали фізично виключили. І логічно, і фізично були виключені.
With the grid unplugged to prevent more outages, workers at the power company realized the only way to restore power was to physically drive out to the individual substations and switch the power on manually. Yuri Torin was on duty that day.
So we're going to one of the substations that was actually attacked and taken out?
Yeah.
And did you have to physically go turn it back on?
Yes.
So there's 35,000 volts over there?
Yeah.
And if I get how close? 60 centimeters?
60 centimeters. Yeah.
Bye-bye?
Yeah, bye-bye.
So this is what you had to do in December?
Yeah, we should to open this.
And I'm gonna stay close to you. So that's the
they switch off this equipment, they switch off that equipment. So this substation and two transformer was without electricity.
Wow.
And this area was without
Electricity.
Yeah. Open this box and press this button.
To turn it back on?
Yeah. It's more than 25,000 people.
Wow.
And that's just from this one substation. Dozens of substations across the region went dark. The outages lasted less than a day, but it took months for the power companies to get back to normal. I also learned that at least one facility was attacked but managed to keep the lights on. And there are likely even more targets who haven't come forward to avoid embarrassment. It's clear this was a massive, coordinated effort. So who did it and why? In 2015, 2 days before Christmas, at least 3 power companies in Western Ukraine were hit by a cyber attack, which knocked the power out for more than 250,000 people. The hack came in the midst of an active military conflict between the government of Ukraine and Russian-backed separatists in the east. Within 5 days of the cyber attack, the SBU, Ukraine's equivalent of the FBI, blamed Russia. After some lengthy negotiations, I met with a member of the SBU in the back of a van in Kiev, on the condition we not reveal his name or show his face. He told me that officials had advanced knowledge of the attacks, but were unable to prevent them. But the SBU hasn't offered any proof to back up its claims.
Why isn't there any direct proof that it was Russia? Why don't you have that?
Потому что в условиях гибридной войны их не может быть. С Российской Федерацией прекращены все отношения, и в данном случае они находятся именно конкретных прямых доказательств, которые уличают конкретных лиц, могут быть собраны исключительно на телекоммуникационном оборудовании, которое находится в Российской Федерации или за ним.
Right. So this is a war. This is a full-on war with Russia. Both online, offline.
Когда гибнут люди, это настоящая война, к сожалению. Все остальное это такое поправимое. Свет отключили. Просто это используется именно как подтверждение той войны. Но, к сожалению, на то она и гибридная. Новое состояние, новое общество. Информационные угрозы являются настолько преобладающими на сегодня, что ради них готовы отключать свет, ради них готовы жертвовать людьми.
Ukraine was quick to blame Russia for the attacks, but the reality might be more nuanced. After the hack, the US government sent a team to Ukraine to investigate, and several cybersecurity firms analyzed the publicly available evidence.
There's so many things that Russia gets blamed for as a big bag boogeyman that you go, well, maybe not all of it's true, but some of it still is.
Robert M. Lee served in the Air Force as a cyber warfare operations officer. He also worked for an unnamed US intelligence agency, which he won't confirm or deny was the NSA. Rob now runs his own company focused on securing critical infrastructure. Working with electricity industry watchdogs, he co-wrote the definitive report on the Ukraine attacks.
Now, why don't you take me through the actual, in layman's terms,
sure,
how this attack go down? Because it's multifaceted. There's a few different stages, right?
Yep. So it all started about 6 months previous to December, about 6 months previous. There was phishing emails sent out. So operators at the power grid were getting emails about a variety of different events going on in Ukraine. When they opened up the email, a piece of malware called Black Energy 3 was dropped to the system. That enabled the attackers to steal off credentials, usernames, passwords, things like that from the network, and then were able to come back in. Over that 6-month period, they spent that time researching and understanding the environment. So it wasn't this story that we hear sometimes thrown around about light speed, net speed, cyber attacks, no, it was human adversaries doing research in the environment. So the attack starts. When they did that, they also had a piece of malware called Kill Disk positioned on the systems, so that when the systems reboot, it would kick off deleting all the files and deleting all the systems.
Wow.
So while the operators are trying to recover, they're also dealing with the fact that all their systems are going down. And then in the midst of all that, they basically blew the bridges to those substations.
Now, let's talk about the actual people that did this attack in Ukraine. The Ukrainian government said it was Russia. So who was it? When you took a look at it, and you actually went into it, who did it?
If we're talking about should the US government come out and say it was Russia, I don't think they have enough proof.
One American cybersecurity firm, FireEye, blamed the Ukraine attack on a group they call Sandworm Team, which they say has ties to Russia. Rob agrees.
I think the Sandworm team is more than likely a private for-hire team that goes around and kicks down the doors for places, and then it's possible that a military team or someone else comes in after. But I do not think that the Sandworm team is the Russian government.
Sandworm team may not be the Russian government, but the fact that Russia has been implicated in the attack could have international repercussions. And it seems highly unlikely that people inside the country would do something so high profile, and so obviously in Russia's interest, without at least informing the government.
I can't imagine a scenario, and this doesn't mean it can't exist, but I don't feel that there's a scenario where a team operating out of Russia thought that it was a good idea to take down a portion of the power grid and at least didn't notify somebody that they were going to do it. It's a very risky situation to be in.
The hack of Ukrainian power companies is the first time we know of that a cyber attack caused outages in a nation's power grid. If the attack was actually pulled off by Russia, this wouldn't be the first time access to electricity has been used as a weapon in this conflict. More than a year before the incident, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Then some Crimeans got very pissed off and struck back. They formed a blockade and cut off access from Crimea to Ukraine. And in November 2015, they blew up pylons providing Crimea with electricity, leaving 2 million Crimeans in the dark. That happened just a month before the cyber attacks on Ukraine's power grid.
Я сейчас скажу, потому что террористы не мы. Мы учителя, бизнесмены, хлебопекари, фермеры, те, которые делали блокаду. Мы ничего ни у кого не захватывали. Мы у себя дома жили все. А Путин пришел с оружием в руках, русский солдат пришел с оружием в руках в Крым и забрал часть чужого государства, украинского государства, забрал наш дом. Поэтому мы не могли это так просто оставить.
Lanur Islyamov is a businessman and a former deputy prime minister of Crimea. He's a Tatar, a Muslim ethnic minority in Ukraine. He was the leader of the blockade, and the Russian government has charged him with terrorism in absentia. Many believe the cyber attack on Western Ukraine's power grid was Russia's retaliation for the Crimea blackout, which happened just a month earlier.
The Russian government has actually named you personally for sabotaging the Crimean power grid. How do you respond to that allegation?
Мне все равно, что думают русские и кого они обвиняют в том или в этом. Я потерял очень много активов, которые остались в России. Я потерял возможность возвращаться в Крым. Я потерял возможность видеть свою маму, собственного отца. Это огромная потеря для нас. Она невозможно даже оценить эту потерю. Пусть русские теряют тоже что-то. Они должны привыкнуть к тому, что они будут терять каждый день еще больше того, что они потеряли от энергоблокады.
Do you think the FSB is following you?
А сейчас они не просто следят, они подключаются к моему телефону, они мониторят мои передвижения, они очень интересуются тем, где я могу находиться. Я не нахожусь больше 2-3 дней в одном месте, чтобы вы понимали. Я тоже предпринял определенные шаги, и они всячески интересуются там, где можно меня задержать, каким-то образом, чтобы они меня похитили или убили.
So do you personally think that the attack on the Obanergos in December in Ukraine was retaliation for the attack on the power grid in Crimea?
Абсолютно. Это звенья одной цепи, конечно. Это так. То, что произошла блокада энергетическая, и то, что они ответили хакерской атакой, это абсолютно две вещи даже для меня непонятные.
Do you think you'll ever go back to Crimea?
Абсолютно. Мы вернемся в Крым. Даже сомнений быть не может. Вы знаете, в Крым возвращаются все крымские татары. Рано или поздно. Мы вернемся или на щите, или с щитом.
So you're going back to Crimea dead or alive, is what you're saying?
I think so, okay. Поэтому никто не вправе ее отнимать. Поэтому это наша земля. И мы там будем хозяевами. И это факт неоспоримый.
The Russians may have been the first to take the conflict in Ukraine online, but the battles being fought there are continuing from both sides. Roman Burko and Vitalik Sororin, not the real names, are part of a group called Inform-Napalm.
Так би мовити, ми стали на передньому фронті інформаційної війни одразу після вторгнення Російської Федерації в Україну. Нам довелося вести свою війну проти цієї країни, тому що ми бачили, як державні структури не справляються з цією ситуацією. ми були змушені зривати маски з російських окупантів.
Many of their members live in Crimea or in separatist-controlled regions in eastern Ukraine. Officially, the Russian military is not deployed in the east, but using a mixture of social media and on-the-ground intel gathering, InformNapalm is proving Russian special forces are actively operating in the region. They've also published information about Russian soldiers serving in Syria. They agreed to meet me in my hotel and wore masks because they worry about what could happen to their family members and loved ones if their identities were ever revealed to Russian agents.
So what is InformNapalm and what do you guys do?
InformNapalm – це міжнародна волонтерська спільнота, яка була утворена на початку березня 2014 року. Вона утворилася з людей, які побачили цю агресію одразу, побачили, що за тим, що Росія намагається. Тому ми займаємося не тільки розвідкою відкритих джерел, тобто збираємо інформацію про російських солдат, збираємо розвідувальні дані, яким створюємо певні перешкоди як для російських дій, виставляти конкретні назви підрозділів, конкретні прізвища тих, хто окупував нашу землю, нашу територію. 2016 рік все змінив. З'явилися угруповання, інформаційні кіберугруповання, які стали на сторону України. Це Falcons Flame, Trinity, Рух 8 тощо. Проте зараз ці угруповання починають об'єднуватись і розуміють, що потрібно відповідати потужніше, спільною складовою, як рій бджіл, який нападає на ведмедя, який починає лізти не в свої діла.
So this is more than just an info war between Ukraine and Russia. This is essentially a cyber war as well.
Так, ми переходимо у стадію кібервійни. Можливо, це перша кібервійна світова, яка розпочнеться у 2016 році. Я думаю, ми її виграємо.
You're behind a keyboard and you're causing havoc for the Russian government. But are you willing to die for that cause?
В принципе, если нужно будет, пойдем в окопы, научимся. Но еще это не время, есть кому в окопах сидеть, а мы пока что побудем за клавиатурой.
Russia never formally responded to Ukraine's allegation that the country is to blame for the cyber attack on Ukraine's power grid. And some government officials within Russia really don't take the threats from Ukrainian hackers very seriously.
Я не вижу смысла на что-либо, на вот эти вот уколы отвечать. Ну, то есть, представляете себе, вот ты встречаешь профессионала, бойца по смешанным единоборствам, да? Ну, я, допустим, боец по смешанным единоборствам. И ко мне подходит какой-то мальчик, да? Ну, может быть, он немножко под шафой, или там что-то у него настроение плохое, или там женщина его бросила. И он подходит, тебе начинает грубить. Сразу бить его? Или там как-то отвечать зачем? Надо объяснить человеку, что не надо. Нам зачем конфликтовать? Во-первых, потому что я сильнее. Во всех отношениях.
Vadim Dengin is a member of the Russian parliament and the Committee on Informational Policy, Information Technology and Communications.
Если против России будете наносить дальше, продолжать, значит, будете получать ответную реакцию. И этот адекватный ответ может быть миллион раз сильнее, чем то, что развязывается, и это должны понимать те, кто это организовывает.
The Russian government maintains it never invaded Ukraine, and that Russian soldiers in eastern Ukraine are merely patriotic volunteers helping Ukrainians who want to separate from the country and join Russia.
Мы стараемся не принимать никакого участия в конфликте, нас постоянно пытаются затащить туда. Но мы соседи, и мы не стараемся создать этот конфликт, мы стараемся вообще уходить от этого всего.
Dengin might think ragtag Ukrainian hackers are harmless, but the hackers I'm about to talk to are the exact guys who, in collaboration with InformNapalm, hacked the Kremlin and leaked the emails of Putin's right-hand man, Vladislav Surkov, making international headlines.
So right now I'm waiting to meet up with a hacking group that InformNapalm hooked us up with called Ruhate. And I don't know what these people look like, but I do know they're under investigation apparently, allegedly, by Russian intelligence because they've been hacking Russia. We should be meeting with them really soon.
We finally managed to figure out a safe location for the two Black Hat hackers I was about to meet. They call themselves Dahmer and Ross. They're part of the hacking group Ru-Hate and say Russian intelligence agencies like the FSB would be very interested in knowing who they are.
So if you could say anything to those Russian FSB investigators, what would you tell them?
You can go and yourself like Captain Kangaroo. Yes, sir.
You're an outlaw, eh? So you have evidence then that they're actually after you?
Yep.
And you don't give a
Why should I? I'm on my ground, I'm on my soil, I'm in my country, protecting my country.
But if they invade at some point?
We should fight back. It's the war.
This is war, so this is all war to you?
Yep. It is a war. Not using the direct shot fires and guns, but we're using the codes, the exploits, keyboards and other stuff, but it's still a war. We are not waging a war against the civilian, Russian civilian. We're waging a war against the criminal Russian government.
Do you want to explain some of the biggest hacks that Ru-Hate has ever done?
Ну, я же уже перечислял. Взломали Государственную Думу Российской Федерации, взломали несколько областей. Сейчас вместе это с Falcons Flames, с Trinity, с Inform Napalm вытащили огромное количество документов, писем, обмениваемся информацией. Я думаю, что после того, как мы научимся пользоваться методами это друг друга, то тогда, то есть я думаю, что самые лучшие взломы будут еще впереди.
The conflict in Ukraine is almost 3 years old and counting. As I know from my own experience, getting shot at or being shelled is a daily occurrence in certain parts of the country. But if Russia really was behind the power grid attacks in western Ukraine, or even if Russia just allowed a private company to do it, a major line has been crossed. Our critical infrastructure in the US and Canada is just as vulnerable to cyber threats as Ukraine's. So if someone really wanted to turn the lights off in North America, they probably could. And given that there have been no serious repercussions for what happened in Ukraine, what's really stopping someone from doing it again? Over the past few years, I've reported for Vice from inside Russia, and I've witnessed firsthand the authoritarian power of the Vladimir Putin regime. I've also learned that hackers and intelligence agencies, like the FSB, Russia's state security service, have a murky relationship. The country's hackers make headlines around the world for thefts and politically motivated cyber attacks. Just ask Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. But how strong is the collaboration between cyber criminals and Russian spooks? I'm in Pittsburgh, where a little-known FBI office specializes in cybercrime investigations. This is the spot where the feds disrupted one of the most sophisticated and lucrative malware schemes ever discovered. Game Over Zeus infected over 1 million computers, creating a network, or botnet, that spanned the globe. Those infected computers helped hackers rob more than 150 banks around the world, stealing more than $100 million from US banks alone, and in such a way that was hard to trace. And CryptoLocker, a ransomware program installed by Game Over Zeus, shut hundreds of thousands of users out of their own computers, until they paid to have them unlocked. After taking down the botnet, the FBI identified the mastermind as a Russian suspect named Yevgeny Bogachev, and made him #1 on their most wanted cyber criminal list. Scott Smith was the special agent who led FBI Pittsburgh.
And who was it targeting specifically, Game Over Zeus?
It was mostly targeting banking industry or payrolls, larger businesses. It was trying to get the banking credentials, passwords, and get in and do large-scale wire transfers. They generally were not looking for some of the individual private accounts for $1,000 or $2,000. It just wasn't what they had so much access to so much larger accounts, they would go for the $100,000 or $1 million wire transfers.
The FBI pinned Game Over Zeus on an organized group based in Russia, dubbed the Business Club. And at the head of it was a mysterious character named Yevgeny Bogachev, aka Slavic.
So who is the Business Club?
Business Club is a pretty close-knit organization. Each person had their specialty or area of responsibility. Those that would work on the infrastructure, those that would supply the mules that would take out the money, those that would create the accounts that would sweep the funds to, those that have more technical abilities to tweak the malware and direct it and put it out.
And we know that there's a certain character at the center of it, Bogachev.
Yeah, Bogachev.
So you're pretty familiar with this guy.
Yeah, he was in a sense, the head. He had both the technical skills and the criminal background to bring together the organization, to tie it together, to make it profitable. He's actually has a $3 million reward for the apprehension and prosecution. So that's the largest for a cyber criminal ever. That entices a lot of different people to help us out with his apprehension.
How has the Russian government cooperated with your office, with the FBI, with respect to Bogachev and some of these cyber criminals? Have they been easy to work with, or?
I'm sure they know who he is, and to the extent they would help us, that's more of a sometimes political question than it is a FBI law enforcement question.
But if there's anything I know about Russia, it's that the extradition of their own, especially to the good old US of A, is unthinkable. But there may be another reason that the indicted hacker Bogachev feels protected in Russia. After looking at Game Over Zeus, a Dutch security company called Fox IT discovered that the malware had been retooled with an espionage component. The targets, which included foreign ministries and intelligence agencies, were written right into the code, and they were all in the wheelhouse of the FSB, Russia's security and intel agency that's the successor to the KGB.
When I saw the commands and the comments, I knew that it was something different from the rest. I started researching it and quite quickly figured out what it was.
This is Michael Sandy. He's a financial malware expert who's been tracking Game Over Zeus and obsessing over Bogachev for years.
So what about that? There was this surveillance aspect to Game Over Zeus. So it wasn't just stealing money, it was also espionage against very specific targets.
The most obvious ones were Turkey and Georgia, and later when the more recent Ukrainian conflict started, they started to target Ukraine as well. There were actual, specific names of government employees that were listed in those search commands.
But would you say that the evidence suggests that in some way, some possible Russian agent with the FSB or some of their state intelligence services slipped some names or some search terms to Bogachev to insert into Game Over Zeus?
Yeah, that is a very good possibility. There was just a large amount of commands, and they're, when you see them all together, this is not just, he himself just thinking up, search terms. This is something that was given to him, obviously.
There's a $3 million bounty on Bogachev from the US government. That's a lot of money.
It is.
But nobody's found him in the world. So what's with that? Why hasn't anybody found him, and why hasn't he been apprehended?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, I also don't know, because if I knew, then, I would be cashing in at 3 million, obviously. But, a number of things could have happened. Maybe he is now, full-time working for the government, or he has, really disappeared somewhere. It's really difficult to say.
With a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head, Bogachev is going to be a tough guy to track down. But even if it is next to impossible to meet the legendary Slavic, I want to get on the ground with Russian hackers to see the scene for myself. I'm in Moscow trying to learn more about the links between Russian black hat hackers and the country's spy agencies. I'm looking into the case of an infamous Russian hacker named Yevgeny Bogachev. He's the FBI's #1 most wanted cybercriminal, but rumor has it he's under the protection of Putin's government, and that makes sense. Turns out the malware Bogachev used to rob banks also contains surveillance software serving the country's geopolitical interests. Andrei Soshnikov is a BBC reporter in Moscow. He became known for exposing Russia's troll farms, which spread pro-Russian and anti-American propaganda around the world. I asked him about the hacking scene in Russia and how Bogachev fits into it.
Bogachev is a legend, of course. Still #1 on the FBI list. I know his fans. Some of my people I know, they pray for Bogachev.
And why is he such a legend in Russia?
A great mind. He has he's so clever. They think to hack Americans is like a heroic thing for them. America is our former enemy, and it's our kind of enemy nowadays. Americans use their infrastructure to monopolize internet, and someday they can use it against us. So hacking them shows them that we are stronger, that we have the best minds.
Is the Russian government interested in bringing Bogachev to justice?
No,
Going to jail?
absolutely not.
No?
No, absolutely not. Because they receive no punishment for hacking out of the country.
But so then how do some of these people get into the black market and work for criminal syndicates?
It's not a black market. You can call it black markets. It's just a free market. There's no security service that trying to put this down. They use it themselves because they can't afford to use hackers full-time. So they just can hire them. Speaking to ordinary people like me, I can use this black market too if I need. I can just connect to one website and I can hire any expert I need in this cyber fraud, hacker, everything I need.
Russia may have some of the world's most notorious hackers, but it's also home to some of the world's best security researchers. I'm at the headquarters of the Russian cybersecurity giant Kaspersky. It's a private company, but it frequently works with Russian law enforcement in cybercrime investigations.
Looks like a government command center.
Yeah. So we have 3 rooms like this, Moscow, Seattle, and Beijing.
And is this all just code?
Yes, it's machine code of one of the most known, the Zeus malware.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the larger-than-life big boss of Kaspersky, Eugene Kaspersky. He's known for throwing epic parties and as a pioneer of anti-malware.
Some people, they collect post stamps, butterflies. So I was collecting computer viruses as a hobby. And then my hobby slowly became my job.
But now you say that the best hackers in the world are in Russia.
Unfortunately, yes. Well, we estimate that now there are about a dozen Russian-speaking criminal gangs, cyber criminal gangs, which are very professional, and they're quite a serious problem.
And Kaspersky, as I understand it, is tracking some of these groups.
Yes, of course. This is a company mission to save the world, to save the cyber world.
Why is it so hard to catch people like Bogachev, who are these, brilliant hackers?
In some cases, they are really professional, so they can stay in the shadow for a long time. And for example, they don't attack victims on the territory of their own country. So the local law enforcement, they don't have the permission to start the criminal case, simply because there were zero victims on the territory of Russia.
With no victims inside the country, Bogachev and his group may not have to worry about the Russian authorities, but he's still the FBI's most wanted cybercriminal. I'm in Las Vegas to meet an expert on Russian cyber gangs. He made a name for himself by trolling the dark web and revealing the inner workings of several major crime rings. As you can imagine, Brian Krebs has also managed to piss off said rings. One hacker tried to get even with him by sending a gram of high-grade heroin to his house, and then phoning in a tip to the cops.
One thing I want to ask you about, because you said the Russian government condones hacking or hackers. What do you know about kind of the connections between Russian intel and hiring freelancers? What's the relationship there?
I've long suspected that some of the longest-running Russian hacker forums are actually run by the FSB.
Really?
I'm sure, because they have to know who these people are, and when they become useful for some reason, the government's not shy about making that desire known. Some of the guys that I've been able to track down, a lot of these guys kind of romanticize the way the Soviet Union was, and they sort of want they want Russia to be a superpower again. They want Russia to be somebody to be reckoned with.
Which brings me to another character, Bogachev.
He's a really interesting guy.
He's an interesting guy because one thing that we've seen in Game Over Zeus, there was actual surveillance information or surveillance tools inside of his code. He was trying to gather stuff on Turkey and FSA and Georgia and Ukraine. Why would he have done that? This is a guy who's been only interested in money for this many years.
You increase your usefulness if you have that kind of access. So And a guy like that would need protection.
Oh yeah, the FBI is very interested.
He's
still.
probably not able to leave Russia, ever. I mean, if he does, you know, there's a good chance he'll get picked up.
I reached out to all of my sources and followed every lead, but I haven't been able to arrange a meeting with the notorious hacker, Yevgeny Bogachev. I heard he was living large in southern Russia under the protection of Russian intel. In fact, there was a rumor he even got plastic surgery to avoid being recognized. Bogachev or not, I wanted to see this Russian cybercriminal underworld for myself.
So I'm meeting with a famous hacker here in Russia named NSD. And he's a pretty interesting character because our local producer, Dima, said he wanted advice to buy shares in his new Russian company. And he was also concerned that the cameras that we're using would give him radiation. So this is going to be pretty interesting. Hello. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Oleg Tolstik, aka NSD, isn't of Middle Eastern descent and dresses in the style of a Gulf chic because it feels good, as he said to me. He was once a notorious hacker, rumored to be involved in carding and bank theft. But after he appeared in an infamous YouTube video, living the Russian hacker life, he supposedly went legit. Now he claims to run a public software company that's listed on the Moscow Stock Exchange.
So I did see a video of you before this. Do you know what video I'm talking about?
Ну, короче, очень много там разного резонанса вызвало, вот, и поэтому пришлось там перестать там консультировать разных людей вот по разным там серым темам, вот, и соответственно вот, как бы занялись вот именно вот этими вещами, то есть чем сейчас занимаемся.
So when you were younger, you were described as a computer genius. Was it tough, though, when you were younger to make money?
Ну, я начал с журнала «Хакер». То есть это журнал, который объединял в себя всех молодых специалистов в сфере хакерства, взлома. Вот. Я был очень молодой тогда, и как бы вот единственное, чем я мог заниматься, это компьютерными технологиями. Если бы я был постарше, я бы, может быть, пошел бы там в какие-нибудь бандиты, наверное.
So I know you don't want to talk about the dark side of the world of Russian hackers, but I'm going to be here for a few more days. Do you have any advice for me on how I can better report on that world? Do you think any of them would talk to me?
I think no.
Why not?
Боятся.
Oleg gave me a true taste of just how freaky and shadowy the Russian hacking world is. But I needed more and got the name of another supposed hacker with a colorful past. Warning, things are about to get even weirder. Meet a self-described hacker who calls himself NC. I found him in a typical-looking Soviet-era apartment block.
Holy shit. It's just, he's even got the weird TV going off in the corner for no reason. Very cool room.
Год назад ее сделал, как давно мечтал у меня.
So, what do you hack?
Если раньше приходилось применять какие-то приемы, чтобы взламывать сайты, всякие эксплойты, софт, программы, какие-то инструменты. Когда я вернулся в большую игру, то оказалось, что все данные по существу открыты. Правда, это надо немного видеть.
So what have you hacked, stolen, and
Я не
sold?
продаю ничего.
Чем ты зарабатываешь?
Скажи ему, что этот вопрос мне задает и мама, и друзья, и так далее.
Why are you stealing all
Я не
this
знаю,
data?
это не мой выбор, скажи. Для меня это сухие данные, то есть это нет того, что найти компромат на такую-то шлюху там, или на такого-то деятеля политики. У меня просто данные. Просто мне их нужно больше, больше и больше.
He just got like, you know, literally.
No, I'm okay.
Еще какие-то войскомовские товарищи объявились. Это, допустим, вся эта информация может быть, допустим, полезна. Для чего меня...
Are you hacking Vice right now? Oh, that's weird. This got real in a hurry.
Пускай кто-нибудь из них скажет мне любой свой имейл на Gmail. Ну, там...
That's not going to happen. I'm not giving him anything. It's clearly illegal. You say you have customers or clients. Are any of those, you know, the FSB, the Russian government?
Я очень плохо знаю этот мир силовиков. То, что я человек воспитанный, я не буду посылать людей, если они что-то у меня попросят. Но когда они обратятся, у меня не будет выбора.
Just like a scene out of Hackers, and would never answer a question and said everything is open, but I hack things. That was insane.
Here in Moscow, finding a hacker who talked openly about their relationship with Russian intel was near impossible. Until we prowled a local hacker bar and met up with a woman who calls herself EAS-7. She's a known hacker and once worked on industrial espionage for the FSB.
And is it a regular thing for FSB to approach hackers, cyber criminals to do work for them? Is this something that happens all the time in Russia?
Могу только сказать одно, что наиболее, скажем так, практически всех, кого я знаю из тех, кто достаточно крут, где-то половина работает не напрямую на ФСБ, но на очень похожие структуры. И причем я точно знаю, что эти спецслужбы знают, что эти люди, ну, грубо говоря, принимают наркотики, ведут антисоциальный образ жизни, но они очень-очень круты, и они очень хорошо делают свою работу. И, в принципе, им достаточно хорошо платят, пока они делают хорошо свою работу.
Have you ever worked with anybody who could be classified as a cyber criminal, somebody who works in, you know, groups that will hack things for money or for legal purposes?
Yes. Ну, в общем, да, я работала. Ну, скажем так, у меня был тяжелый период в жизни, когда мне нужны были деньги. Собственно, я в какой-то момент оказалась на улице, действительно. И, собственно, лично я ничего криминального не делала. Я в тот момент занималась написанием для них программ. Куда они их используют, честно говоря, не очень знаю. Но платили хорошо.
Is there a kind of unwritten rule that hackers in Russia don't hack Russian institutions?
Ну, лично мой принцип — не срать там, где живешь.
Those industrial espionage targets you were targeting, were they American companies?
Ну, мне кажется, ответ, да, ломали ли мы американские сайты, мне кажется, довольно конкретный. Как бы в прямой разведывательной деятельности никакого участия, в общем-то, я не принимала. Я занимаюсь только разработкой софта. А куда они его применяли, я, честно говоря, понятия не имею.
So, according to EAS-7, the Russian government hires freelancers to do some of its dirty work. And many of those same hackers are involved in criminal activities. Russian authorities don't seem to care much about their citizens hacking foreign targets. And those hackers may even be protected when they prove to be useful in other ways. That might explain why it's so hard to find Bogachev. And why it's so hard to attribute any attacks that come out of Russia. US intelligence officials, for example, are confident that the Democratic National Committee hack was directed by the Russian government. But that doesn't necessarily mean Putin's hackers were the ones actually responsible for it. Maybe this is an arrangement that suits the Putin regime. The government gets a steady stream of hacking talent that can act outside of the bounds of international law. And Russian officials also get plausible deniability for the attacks that ultimately serve their interests. Years ago, it was pure science fiction to imagine a US soldier sitting in a bunker in Nevada could remotely pilot a plane flying thousands of miles away, and then drop a Hellfire missile on an enemy target. But this is reality in 2016. Today, unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, are a vital part of warfare. They're in the stockpiles of more than 24 nations and target and kill thousands around the world. The next generation of drone technology is even more sophisticated. I found it here in this idyllic little field just outside of Budapest, Hungary.
When you look at a flock of starlings in the sky, their motion is based on very simple rules. The whole pattern, their motion is some kind of meta-level intelligence or collective intelligence. And the same kind of thing applies to drones as well. When I see the whole flock flying, it's always magical for me after so many years.
This is Gabor Vásárhelyi. He's part of a team developing technology they hope will be used in agriculture or search and rescue. They're working on drone swarms, which is to say, a flock of autonomous drones in the sky moving and making decisions as a posse of like-minded robots. Unlike the typical drones used today, there's no human operator directing their movement individually.
Oh, now you're hearing them kind of creak up, eh?
These machines are given a set of instructions.
Holy.
Then they figure out how to execute them as a team, solving problems in real time. That beacon in my hands makes the drones track whoever's holding it wherever they go. Notice how they coordinate and keep their distance from one another automatically.
Ah! How are they communicating with one another?
The drones have a local communication network. Every single drone just sends out some info about itself, and all the drones that are close enough to receive this will receive and integrate into the decisions.
Why do you think the military is interested in this kind of technology?
If you have one big aircraft and someone shoots it, then it's a lot of damage, and then your whole money is gone. When you have 100 drones instead and someone shoots at it, then one drone is taken away and the rest can do the same. That's how mosquitoes work, for example. Like, there are many small mosquitoes, everybody is just sipping a little bit of blood, but the whole species goes on.
Air forces of the future may be stoked on the idea of drone swarms, but what about the navies? Here at a NATO research facility in Italy, scientists are essentially developing autonomous unmanned subs. But signals travel more slowly underwater, and that makes it harder to create a submarine swarm.
One of the things we're trying to do is create the internet for underwater robots.
Yeah.
So we have the internet on land, and now we're getting the Internet of Things. Well, we're doing Internet of Things for underwater things.
So how is the internet underwater?
It sucks.
John Potter is the scientist in charge of strategic development. He hopes that the drones they're developing here will be used to map the oceans.
So when it comes to autonomous, or when it comes to, let's say, drones in the water, what is coming over the horizon?
I guess I have an aversion to the word drone. It implies something mindless. From the outset, there was never an option to go the drone route of having a dumb device, because once you put it in the sea and it dives and it's gone more than 100 meters away from you, you don't know what it's up to. And if you ever want to see it come back, you want to have something a little smarter than that.
So what would you call them? Unmanned?
So these vehicles are a step forward in autonomy with respect to what's currently typically in operation at the moment. They're able to adaptively change what they are doing. So you can put vehicles in and have them work as a team. And if one vehicle sees something and it knows it has a team member with maybe a higher resolution camera or imaging system that's just over here somewhere, and it knows how far away it is, it says, hey, Bill, come and take a look at this. I think I found a so-and-so. Would you want checking that out, see what you think of it?
And I guess that's one of the other things that people are going to wonder is something like an underwater system like that, could that be weaponized at some point?
That's not something we are really working on here. How these autonomous abilities eventually translate into operational systems depends on lots of other folk and organizations within NATO and elsewhere. It is something that's being considered, but I would like to see all the stakeholders, which basically means all society, become informed, well-informed, and think carefully about this. What is it that we actually want from autonomous systems?
And that really hit me. The people developing these systems aren't the ones who will decide how they're used in military conflict. But whether or not you're comfortable with autonomous drone swarms, they're coming. I'm in Portugal, heading out to a NATO research ship in the Atlantic to get a first-hand view of underwater drone testing.
I'm gonna have to climb that puppy right there, like Blackbeard or something.
This is more or less our control center where we keep the picture of everything that we have deployed at sea. This here is the position, the ship. This is where we are now. You'll see here these green points is our field of deployed assets for the current test we're doing.
This is basically your ocean lab.
This is our ocean lab, exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's our ocean lab.
João Alves is the coordinator for underwater communication. He and his crew spend weeks at sea experimenting with things like submarine communication and anti-sub warfare tech.
Yes,
Time Bandit. So these are the anti-submarine warfare
These
ones.
are the ones that we employ for our multi-static anti-submarine warfare missions, yes, indeed.
Now, I know these machines right now are just, they're doing nothing more than reconnaissance or surveillance or even just mapping or anti-submarine warfare in terms of detecting different possible enemy craft. But do you think at any point these things could be weaponized? Do you think that's a possibility?
We, as a science-based research center, are interested in developing the autonomy, the capabilities of these machines. Then, I mean, it's totally out of our scope, the usage of... we are very excited on the examples you just gave on the improving the reconnaissance, improving the mapping capabilities. Other than that, I mean, we
You're not touching the rest?
No, not at all. I mean, it's not even our interest.
João says he's not interested in weaponizing these drones. But like other people working on the same autonomous machines, he doesn't decide how they're ultimately used. That's up to the military. Unlike the carpet bombings of the past, drone strikes are supposed to be precise, limiting civilian casualties. That said, it's tough to know exactly how many people around the world were killed by drones in the past decade. Estimates range from the thousands to the tens of thousands. And it's even harder to figure out how many of those killed or injured were civilians. But it's not just the numbers that alarm some critics.
Have you seen a US president go on TV to say, tonight I ordered airstrikes in Libya or Pakistan or Yemen? They don't do that anymore because something about drone technology and other weapons technology has enabled US presidents and politicians to basically shift what the norm is.
Noreen Shaw is the director of Amnesty International USA's Security and Human Rights Program. She's a vocal opponent of the US military's targeted killing campaigns and worries about the autonomous technologies in development.
So the idea that this could reduce civilian casualties to you is impossible.
Our concern is that actually would increase civilian casualties, increase the risk of civilian casualties. I of course agree that if we can keep people out of harm's way, that's vital. But if you don't have governments having to weigh the cost to their own citizens when they decide to go to war, then you're really making it so that their stakes are a lot lower. And that could mean that the US and other governments are just engaging a lot more in warfare than they did before, just not calling it warfare. And we already see that. I mean, the US is using lethal force right now in Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, Somalia. There's something kind of invisible about the use of autonomous weapons or robots, something that enables policymakers to think, well, we could use lethal force in a surgical way, in a limited way, and we wouldn't even have to have a big public debate about it. We're supposedly just at war all the time.
But at what point is this technology just inevitable?
One of the things that is so difficult is that technology is fascinating for all of us. And it's so fascinating that it creates almost a kind of glee. It's a fixation that our generation has on the possibilities provided by technology. It can make us better than our own selves, that somehow a robot is more selfless than a human being is, doesn't have the prejudices of a human being, and that can solve the fundamental gruesomeness of war. It is a fantasy to think that you can delegate the decision over life and death to a robot, and somehow that inherently makes it more humane and more precise and more lawful. Because there's nothing that would give us any reason to believe that a robot has human empathy, that it has the ability to make a judgment about who is a civilian and who is not a civilian, and whether or not in those particular circumstances a civilian really poses a threat.
But some scientists completely disagree with Noreen and think that it is in fact possible to program a robot to act in a more humane, precise, and lawful way than a human soldier. And here on the Georgia Tech campus, they tried to prove it.
So if you did something bad and you felt guilty about it, you would be less likely to do it again. We want the robot to experience, to behave in a similar way.
Right.
The robots, none of these robots feel emotions, okay? They don't feel anything, they're not sentient. But people can perceive them as feeling things.
Ron Arkin is a roboticist and professor. He's developing technology designed to program ethics into robots.
There are issues associated with human warfighters who occasionally are careless, make mistakes, and in some cases commit atrocities.
So you really think that you could program a robot to be a better and more efficient killer than a human being, and without making the same kind of mess ups that we might see, say, in friendly fire or civilian casualties?
I'm not interested in making them better and more efficient killers. I'm interested in making them better protectors of non-combatants and better protectors of civilians while they are conducting missions than human warfighters are. So my goal is to make them better adhere to international humanitarian law as embodied in the Geneva Conventions and the rules of engagement. You cannot shoot in a no-kill zone. You cannot shoot people that have surrendered. You cannot carry out summary executions. These systems should have a right to refuse an order as well too. So
really?
Yes, this is not just a decision of when to fire, it's also a decision of when not to fire. So that if someone tells it to attack something that is against international humanitarian law and its programming tells it that this is against international humanitarian law, it should not engage that particular target.
So with these weapon systems, could they be like the Tesla self-driving car? You know, you won't get into as many accidents.
Yes, and that's the argument that self-driving cars use. It's the same sort of thing. They say that human beings are the most dangerous things on the road because we get angry, we drink, we are distracted. It'd be better to have the robots driving us there. Look at 9/11. There is no reason an aircraft should have crashed into those buildings. It's an easy task for a control system now and then to be able to change its altitude when it recognizes it's in a collision course and avoid that particular object. We chose not to do that. We choose to trust human beings over and over and over again. But that's not always the best solution.
If there's one thing I've learned over the last few years, it's that it's possible to hack virtually everything running on code, from a nuclear enrichment facility to an SUV. But what about the drone swarms of the future? Here in Texas, there's a team of researchers that demonstrated how military drones used today are hackable. Todd Humphreys is the director of the Radio Navigation Lab.
So this is our arena.
Nets for the drones.
The nets for the FAA.
So there's a future, you think, wherein you could see a ton of these things, dinner table-sized drones possibly, like in a swarm.
Oh yeah.
Attacking a target.
That's right. And they have no regard for their own life, right? So these are suicide drones. They pick their target, they go directly at it, and the kinds of close-in weapon systems and large-scale weapon systems that our US destroyers in the Navy have today, or other ships, there'll be no match against 16 of these at once.
Right. And it all starts here in Austin.
we don't intend to do development of war machines here. But I will say that our somewhat whimsical games that we'll be playing, they are going to engage our operators and our drones in scenarios that are applicable to all sorts of fields.
One of those so-called whimsical games he and his students showed me was a drone version of Capture the Flag. But that's not all they've been up to. Back in 2011, when the Iranians claimed to have hacked a US military drone, Todd and his team proved that it was indeed possible and demonstrated how a simple method called spoofing could have been used to jack US military hardware.
Every drone has a few vital links. One of them is to its ground controller, and one of them is to overhead satellites for navigation. Spoofing attacks one of those vital links. It basically falsifies a GPS signal, makes a forged signal, sends it over to the drone, and convinces the drone that it's in a different place or at a different time, because GPS gives us both time and position.
And you've actually proven this is possible.
We've demonstrated it, yeah. So we've done this, we've done it with a drone, we've done it with a 210-foot super yacht.
So this is back in 2011 that it was possible.
Yeah.
How about now? Have drones kind of caught up to this? Have engineers realized that, when you put this autonomous thing in the air, essentially, it could be overtaken by a hostile actor?
I'd like to be able to say yes, but no. The FAA has charged a Tiger team to looking into this, and they came back after 2 years of study and have put together a set of proposals that would make commercial airliners more resilient to spoofing, have better defenses against spoofing. They've also looked at even smaller unmanned aircraft, but things move slowly in the world of commercial airliners. And as far as smaller unmanned aircraft, I think those of us who are just playing around with the small toys and such aren't really thinking so much about security at this point.
So we know that hacking drones are possible, and yet people are starting to think about creating drone swarms.
Mm-hmm.
What if your drone swarm, you send one off and you're thinking you're going to destroy your enemy, and all of a sudden it turns right back around and it comes at you because it's been hacked.
Right.
I mean, do you have to prepare to be able to destroy your own drone swarm?
Absolutely. I believe you have to have a kill switch for your own swarm, your own resources, your assets, and that must be an ironclad kill switch. The only way to think about security is as an arms race. There will always be vulnerabilities, and you can't somehow design them out of your system just with sheer force of will and intelligence.
I'm at the Pentagon in Washington to meet with Robert Work. He's basically the number 2 at the Department of Defense, which is why he gets the Black Hawk helicopter treatment. We're heading out to the US Army Research Lab at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. Work is leading the Third Offset Strategy, an initiative aimed at building up the military's tech capabilities to counter big-time adversaries like Russia or China. The strategy calls for the US military to focus on robotics, miniaturization, 3D printing, and autonomous systems.
So why is the US government so interested in autonomous weapon systems and autonomous machinery for the military?
Autonomy and artificial intelligence is changing our lives every day. And the military would be crazy not to take these technologies and utilize them in ways that would help us perform better on the battlefield.
I mean, would it be crazy because other countries are going to do it too?
We know that our great powers like Russia and China are investing a lot of money in autonomy and AI. And they think differently about it than we do. You know, we think about autonomy and AI of enabling the human to be better. Authoritarian regimes sometimes think about taking the human out of the equation and allowing the machine to make the decision. And we think that's very dangerous. That's not our conception at all. It's more like Iron Man, where you would use the machine as an exoskeleton to make the human stronger, allow the human to do more, and autonomous intelligence that's a part of the machine to help the human make better decisions.
Would taking humans out of the loop give your adversary an advantage?
This is a question just like cyber vulnerability that keeps us up at night. Would a network that is working at machine speed all the time be able to beat a network in which machines and humans work together? And in certain instances, like, as I said, cyber warfare, electronic warfare, machines will always beat humans. I mean, that will always happen. This is a competition, and we think that the way this will go for the next multiple decades is AI and autonomy will help the human. And you will never try to make it go all automatic. But we have to watch, and we have to be careful and make sure that that doesn't happen.
But not everyone thinks about the Third Offset Strategy in such an optimistic way. In fact, some people think it's only creating a new arms race for robotic war tools that could escalate quickly. Noreen Shaw is one of those people.
What would you say to the DoD policymakers who are actually looking into researching autonomous weapon systems?
I would say ban these weapon systems because you yourselves know what the consequences would be if other governments had them. Look at this issue not from the perspective just of the US government, but from how to keep communities all around the world safe from unlawful use of lethal force. If the US government is concerned about what it sees as bad actors having these weapon systems, then it shouldn't develop them. Once you start to manufacture these weapon systems and authorize arms sales to all these countries, this technology is going to proliferate, and it will unfortunately spiral out of control. We know that you can do it. We know that the technology is tantalizing, but you know that if you start down this road, you're going to a very, very dangerous place, and you shouldn't go there.
At this point, it might be too late. These war toys are on the way. And the thing is, almost every developer of autonomous machines I met is separated from the people who actually decide how their creations will enter war. So while researchers toss around ideas about humane battles or friendly killer robots, you get the feeling conflict isn't going to be any less horrifying using autonomous bots. Whether it's sticks and stones, guns, missiles, or drones, people will always go to war. And it's always brutal, even if a robot is fighting for you. As the host of Cyberwar, I've traveled the world to talk to brilliant hackers, scientists, and programmers. And many of them have told me they're thinking about artificial intelligence. Today, we're in the middle of an AI boom. Huge advancements in artificial intelligence have made things like Siri and self-driving cars possible. AI is in video games, security surveillance systems, smart home devices, and advanced weapons systems. But as researchers race to make the next breakthrough, a lot are warning that we haven't actually thought this through. And it's not necessarily the Terminator scenario they're afraid of, where an AI system becomes self-aware and decides to kill us all. The real threat could lie in the unintended consequences no one sees coming. I'm at Stanford University, where researchers are designing AI that comes in a very non-threatening package. Meet Jack Rabot, a cute little machine that's built to navigate and move through crowds of human buddies. This is a robot that's programmed to learn on its own, through example. This technique, called deep learning, has been fueling a lot of recent AI breakthroughs. Alexandre Alahi and Alexandre Robiquet are part of a team that built Jack Rabot, and they say their little creation is more advanced than a self-driving car.
So the robot enters the scene, analyze it, and then navigate through it according to all the data that we gathered.
So it's just watching people and looking at people and what they're doing and judging the space and the time.
Yeah, and also trying to understand how they interact between each other. The main aspect would be to understand, well, what is the safety distance that I keep with someone else, how do I accelerate or decelerate when I get close to someone, and react accordingly.
So how do you gather that information? You just, this just looks like some sort of surveillance footage.
So last summer, a GR team spent like 2 months gathering daily at rush hour top view data from the Stanford crowd, so we can actually understand how they avoid, how they behave, and how they navigate in such a crowd.
Let's go, robot. Free. So wait, he's being controlled by you?
Right now, yeah.
But so does he have a fully autonomous mode?
Yeah, he could.
And what does he do? He just follows?
No, actually, you can give him, like, if you map the place in the area, you can go from point A to point B, but just having a simple collision avoidance right now. But, like, literally avoid every single obstacle and go where you want him to go.
Can we drive him around a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that spinning thing, that's just like a 3D sensor?
Right.
Just constantly.
Right. So we're capturing depth data, visual data, and we're combining all these sensors to detect humans, understand its surrounding, to locate itself, and predict also where people will go.
Do people freak out when they see it a lot?
No, they like it a lot. They come, hug it, they talk to it. He cannot talk yet.
Is that what you hope the rise of the machines is? It's a friendly rise of the machines?
For that one, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jack Rabot's creators hope that, as AI advances, machines like this will be built to carry luggage through airports or help the blind navigate through pedestrian traffic. The Stanford team is working to get AI to the point where Jack Rabots can one day do what most people can just do by nature. But today's computers are already performing tasks no human is capable of performing, even if it's not quite AI. That technology continues to evolve, and the so-called supercomputer is at the cutting edge. Brian Beagle works in NASA's Advanced Supercomputing Division, where they're working with machines that can actually help us see into the future.
Let's go to the Viz Lab, and I'll show you some of the things that our users do with our supercomputers.
Yeah, as we say.
Using code so advanced, it took 15 years to write.
Yeah, so this is actually a simulation of Earth's oceans. It uses measured data from NASA satellites and puts it into a really huge computer model on the supercomputers and predicts the ocean behavior. So this single simulation actually used up to 70,000 processors and generated over 3 petabytes of data. That's like 10,000 times what you would have on your entire laptop. Let me show you this in full scale. This is actually scaled down so you can see it on the monitors, but if I go to the next one, you can see what the full scale version of this simulation is. For example, this is the ice over Antarctic Ocean, and you can see where it cracks and it sends ripples out into the ocean. And they're working on, they're still continuing to advance the accuracy of this model so they can predict decades into the future.
Would you say this is artificial intelligence?
It seems like it's getting there, right? It's so complex. But we have programmed, in this case, every single line of this code. It's a little different than artificial intelligence, where it's even more of a black box, where we don't know exactly how it's going to work and how that artificial brain is going to evolve.
Why would NASA be interested in artificial intelligence?
Well, there are a few reasons. Of course, NASA's trying to send artificial probes further and further out into the solar system and eventually beyond. We can't program those for all of the things that it's going to encounter. So we need them to be able to do their job without us constantly telling them everything to do. Even in interpreting data like this is such a huge data set that there's no way that a human or even a team of humans can look at all of it. Computing is going to continue to expand dramatically over even in the next 10 years. And so we'll be able to do even better job of modeling, the history of the universe, the future of the universe, the history and future of our planet, and go further in exploring our universe.
The key to artificial intelligence could be creating systems that take cues from the way our own brains work, using a process called deep learning. I'm here at Berkeley to meet one of the leading minds in the development of AI. Stuart Russell has been at this for more than 20 years. He co-wrote the definitive textbook on AI, and he understands both its promise and its dangers.
So the brain has an enormous network of neurons. So a neuron is a cell that has these long, thin connections to other neurons. So it kind of looks like a big tangle of electrical spaghetti. And we have tens of billions of neurons. And the deep learning networks are much, much, much simpler. And what's similar about them is that both the brain and these deep learning networks can learn how to perform a given function. And they learn by being given lots of examples. That deep learning networks, for example, if you want to learn to recognize cats and dogs and candles and staplers and things like that, you can show it millions of photographs of these things with labels saying this is what they are. So on tasks like recognizing a wide range of categories, the competitions they run now have 1,000 different categories of objects. And in the last 5 years, we've gone from systems that might get 5% accuracy on that 1,000 category task to systems that are getting 98% accuracy.
So you've been at this for a while. I mean, how does it make you feel that the progress now is becoming exponential?
The exponential word is a dangerous one because it tends to suggest that things will continue to accelerate without end, but it may turn out that it will plateau, and that for other tasks we need new breakthroughs.
Quantum computing?
Quantum computing, possibly, but that's kind of a cheat in some sense. That says that rather than really understand how the brain manages to do these amazing tasks with what is really not that much hardware. And so I almost hope that quantum computing
doesn't happen
or happens a long time in the future, where give us a chance to keep working on finding the sort of the secrets of intelligence, the things that make us smart, and gain real understanding, because just brute forcing it isn't really understanding what's going on.
Quantum computing may be the next giant leap in building the artificial intelligence of the future. It's a technology so powerful that we really could use it to develop AI without having to understand how human learning works. And though Stuart Russell hopes that quantum computing won't happen for a long time, Rupak Biswas can't wait. And he isn't. He runs the Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab at NASA's Ames Research Center. where scientists are working on a powerful experimental computer called the D-Wave. It's built on the principles of quantum mechanics, which I was hoping Rupak could explain to me.
Someone tells you that they'll explain to you what quantum mechanics is, you should run away from them because no one really understands this field. So it's a very complex field.
Rupak agreed to show me NASA's quantum computer.
This is the D-Wave quantum annealing system. So what you'll see here is basically a black box, and that is where the D-Wave processor is.
This is the Star Trek computer that's millions times more powerful than anything Microsoft's got.
Well, sure, yeah. For certain classes of problems, yes, this is something that is really more powerful, and we expect to get a lot of research done on this.
NASA is hoping to use the quantum computer to develop quantum algorithms. And algorithms are a key component of the code running AI. In layman's terms, an algorithm is a kind of recipe for solving a problem. Basically, it's the set of step-by-step instructions given to a computer to help it accomplish a task.
The question here, though, is that the algorithm could be different on a supercomputer than on a quantum computer, even though you're trying to solve the same problem.
So then what is the difference? Because, to a lot of people, when you say supercomputer and quantum computer, aren't they all supercomputers? What's the difference?
Right. So supercomputers are basically, is based on this transistor. And the transistor is, in layman terms, is basically a very small switch. So it's either 0 or 1. So a bit, and that's in a traditional computer is called a bit, it's either 0 or 1. Whereas in quantum, you have this thing called a qubit, which can be 0 and 1 at the same time. And that's essentially the difference between a computer or a supercomputer or what we would consider classical computing versus quantum computing, where the quantum computer allows you to be in 2 states at the same time. And that's where the power comes from.
A quantum computer could help solve problems that no technology can solve today. Finding cures for diseases or designing space colonies. But what if we choose to use that awesome computing power for destructive purposes?
If you think about nuclear energy, you can use nuclear energy to solve world's energy problems, but you can also use it for bad things. So all of these things, if they are used improperly and get in the wrong hands, it could lead to trouble.
I'm in Oxford to meet the founding engineer of Skype. Since leaving the company, Jan Tallinn has become one of the most prominent voices in the field of artificial intelligence. He sees great advantages in developing AI, but he also warns of the risks of making the technology more powerful without understanding its potential harms.
Once you have systems that are basically smarter than humans when it comes to developing further intelligent systems, then you have intelligent systems developing intelligent systems that in turn go on to develop even more intelligent systems, and you have this intelligence explosion.
He thinks the next step in AI is the creation of so-called general intelligence.
What's the difference between what we're producing now and general intelligence of the future?
If you think about a chess-playing computer, it's just modeling the chessboard in its memory and looking at the scenarios, how this game can play out and what are the actions that it can do on the chessboard. So it actually would be good from chess-playing perspective to not only model the chessboard, but also what's going on in the brain of your opponent.
So it's one thing for a computer to understand the game of chess, but if it can look up from the board and understand me, that's a whole new level of scary. But I'm not the only one that's worried. In 2015, a group of prominent thinkers signed an open letter warning researchers of the risks of making AI more powerful, without understanding its potential harms. The signatories include Stuart Russell, Jan Tallinn, Stephen Hawking, and Elon Musk. Nick Bostrom also signed the letter. He's a Swedish philosopher who's concerned that a mega-powerful AI that is capable of fulfilling the goals we give it could cause our extinction. What if we don't understand the full consequences of what we're asking it to do? What if we leave a crucial detail out?
Take the myth of King Midas. He asked everything he touches should be turned into gold, which sounds like a great idea because you'll be very wealthy if you can turn your coffee mugs into gold. Then he touches his food, it turns into gold. He touches his daughter, it turns into gold sculpture. So not such a cool idea. It turns out that it's actually quite difficult to write down some objective function such that it would actually be good if that objective function were maximally realized. It seemed to me that this could be the most important thing in all of human history. What happens if AI succeeds at its original ambition, which has all along been to achieve full general intelligence, where we have potentially artificial agents that can strategize, that can deceive, that can form long goals and find creative ways of achieving them. And at that point, that kind of AI is not necessarily best thought of as merely a tool, merely another gadget. At that point, we're really talking about creating another intelligent life form.
So could this potentially be AI, the last human invention?
Yeah, so once you have general intelligence at the human or superhuman level, then it's not just that you have made a breakthrough in AI, but you have made indirectly a breakthrough in every other area as well. So the AI can do research, science, development, all the other things that humans do. So potentially what you have is a kind of telescoping of the future, where all those possible technologies that maybe we would have developed given 40,000 years to work on it, space colonization, cures for aging, all these other things.
So in other words, we could be this hyper-invincible space-hopping species with AI, but we also could go extinct by it.
Yeah, I think that machine superintelligence is, depending on how optimistic you feel on a given day, either the keyhole through which Earth-originating intelligent life has to pass. And we could crash into the wall instead of actually going through this. But if you make it through there, then the life expectancy for human civilization might then easily measure in billions of years.
The scientists and philosophers working on artificial intelligence are sure that AI can improve our lives, yet the same people worry that it could destroy us. But how would that happen?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ben.
Nice to meet you, Ben.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What if the AI we build is actually designed to kill? Heather Roth has testified before the UN as an expert on autonomous weapons.
I once sat next to a grad student on a plane, and he told me that he was an AI researcher, and so I was very interested in saying, well, what is it that you work on? And he said, well, I work on image recognition. And I was like, really? Tell me more about that. And he said, well, I'm looking at how we identify different birds and how we identify different types of coral and starfish. And I said, who funds your research? And he said, the Office of Naval Research. And I said, do you really think that your research is going to be confined to birds and starfish? And he didn't actually have an answer for me. He didn't really think through the next step.
How bad would it be if superintelligence is developed by the military?
So I think if a superintelligence emerges, we're all in trouble for a variety of reasons. One of the things that we know about military applications is that they're not for the benefit of humanity, right? They're directed towards offensive harming. We're not talking about creating an AI that's going to be trying to solve climate change or solve or create poetry. We're not worried about those types of AI applications. We could be worried about those ones becoming super intelligent, but you ought to be really concerned about the strong AI that has guns on it.
What does a super intelligent weapon look like?
A super intelligence could be connected to everything. If it has a network, if it has a capability of being connected through Wi-Fi, or it could figure out new ways of connecting itself if you shut off that Wi-Fi. It could propagate itself in its software on different servers and different things, so you could never really truly get rid of it. It could hook itself into missile defense systems and nuclear arsenals, and it could do whatever it liked. I mean, that's the whole thing about being a super intelligence is you're everywhere. You think Skynet, but scarier.
Well, can't wait. Thanks all those AI researchers for getting that.
Well, I mean, the AI researchers, I think it's not fair to blame them. I think they're trying to do things that are good with AI. It's the moment someone takes a scalpel from a surgeon and makes it a knife for killing.
But others think the greatest dangers will come from unintended consequences, as Jan Tallinn explained to me.
I don't think it's correct to say that AI is a technology just like any other technology, or a tool like any other tool. No, it's a technology that can potentially create new technologies itself.
Now, there are a lot of smart people, as we know, looking into this problem and this issue. And
Not enough though.
not enough?
No. Like imagine that we are building a spaceship that's able to carry the entire humanity. And like the boarding has already begun and children are already on board. And then there's like a small group of people who used to be completely ignored who are saying that, look, we're gonna need some steering on this ship. And now like people are going like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, steering might become handy. Yeah?
But in this case, steering is what? Programming the AI to make sure that it doesn't kill us all?
I think the more general point is that whenever you're a technology developer, you have the responsibility of thinking through the consequences of your actions.
It might be an incredibly subtle process which eventually ends up with the human race becoming sort of enfeebled and dependent on machines in ways that leave us vulnerable to any kind of unexpected event.
Is it possible right now we're almost tripping over ourselves in that we're coming up with discoveries about AI and we don't really realize the full implications of what we had just discovered and we just use it?
You know, for centuries or millennia, or even it'll never happen. You hear that, you know, so we don't have to worry, it's just impossible. The history of nuclear physics, there was a speech by Rutherford, he's the guy who split the atom. In 1933, September 11th, he said, there is no possibility that we'll ever be able to extract energy from atoms. Less than 24 hours later, Szilard invented the neutron-based nuclear chain reaction and instantly realized that what it would mean in terms of the ability to create nuclear explosions. So it went from never to 24 hours.
The scientist who split the atom didn't understand that his discovery would so quickly lead to the atom bomb. But the same discovery later gave us the energy that still provides electricity to millions around the world. When it comes to AI, it seems like we're about to split the proverbial atom again. The future of humanity could be at stake. And how we build AI now, what we design it to do, could make the difference.